Three, two, one. Welcome. Wow, welcome to Soup and Meatballs. Today, we're back. We're almost better than ever. 2025 starts with the game of the millennium in the NFL. The Wolverines pulling off an improbable bookend, and the dude abides. But first, Tim, hey, we're back. How are you feeling today?
I am well rested. Full disclosure to anyone who watches or whatever, we're coming to you a little late because I just woke up about 10 minutes ago and frantically looked at my messages, and Max was like, "Are you alive?" And I was like, yes, question mark.
It's 10:43 here on Saturday, January 4th, 2005. And I told you I was going to show you one of my Christmas presents, but I can't show it to you. But I can show you what it does. You ready for this? Whoa. That might be a little bit too much Christmas present right there.
Yeah.
I didn't test this.
It looks like the effect in movies when like an atomic bomb goes off. Like it was just like this blinding light washed over your face.
But you can see me now. Isn't this cool?
I can.
I don't know. You're set up. You must be right by a window or something because like your lighting always I can always see you. But now like, dude, I'm dangerous now. You can actually see what you get. Maybe that's not a good thing here on this show.
Show the people your lovely face. That's what I say.
Here it is. So first one of 2025, and we have to. Obviously having issues live, so I didn't hit the present button on this. That's why. Here we go. Unbelievable. See, I get all these new toys and gadgets, and it's the fundamentals that you forget about.
Yeah.
So, first off, top story today. Obviously, has to be the college football playoffs, and awful news to start the new year at the Sugar Bowl with the awful terrorist attack in New Orleans that takes the focus off the Sugar Bowl and the game and puts it more on public safety. And not to downplay any of that situation, but the fans that attended, I think the people in charge did a really good job of making sure that everyone was safe, got everybody in, everybody out, and there was no more news on that during the game. And in the game itself, these guys played a pretty tight game for the first half of the game. I don't know that in 1 minute of gameplay, actually 53 seconds of gameplay, Notre Dame just rolled through Georgia, and Georgia couldn't come back. I think the loss of Carson Beck was big. Tim, do you think that was big, or was Notre Dame just better that day?
I think Notre Dame was just better because I thought Georgia got pretty good quarterback play despite the injury. I think what hurt them were some drops. There was one downfield that was it looked like the receiver was caught in no man's land where it seemed like he couldn't decide if he wanted to catch it palms out or kind of like absorb it to the body, and it just caromed off his pads. But it would have been a big, like a 40 or 50-yard play that would have set Georgia up in the red zone. A lapse in special teams where they gave up a return to start the second half. They gave up points to end the first half.
He broke 2 or 3 tackles on that return. That was
right. And then also, you gonna
mention him?
What's that?
You gonna mention him?
Well, what I was going to say is also toward the end of the game, the punt where they then do the mass sub and Georgia sends its defense back out. And, jumps where crowd noise really wasn't a factor. I think it was just the frantic sort of fire drill nature of everything, 11 on, 11 off, then 11 on, 11 off. But it was a big penalty that gave Notre Dame a first down and really let them kind of bleed some clock.
As Georgia was trying to mount their comeback, the really nice pass. And I don't know the kid's name. I'm not going to look it up and shout him out here. But number 39, who was not even in pads. This reminded me of a funny story when I was coaching. We were playing at Bermudian Springs, and so they have a coach's box. You're only allowed from like the 30 to the 30. So our kids were down at the other team's 20-yard line, called in a play, and the kid breaks it. Now, I would run the sideline with him because we would call in the plays quickly, and they'd have to find me. And this kid's running all the way down, and he got tackled at about the other 20-yard line. So he didn't score. So I needed to get a play in. So I'm running down the sideline. Now I'm out of the coach's box. I'm not on the field. I am on the player's side of our coach's box, and the referee runs into me, and I got flagged.
Oh, wow.
And we went back. So the middle school athletic director sent me an email the next day telling me that the PIAA was investigating and that I might get suspended. And I was too naive. I'm like, oh my gosh, really?
Like all of a sudden you think you're like Dennis Erickson at early 90s Miami, like you're going to bring the program down.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to get the death penalty. I ran into an official ran into me.
Now, we watched it on film, and that's where he told me he was joking. It was fine. But we watched it on film then the next day. And that's how I had video proof that, I was on the right side and the referee was running into me. And I remember telling the head coach, we should clip this and send this to the PIAA so they don't suspend me. And that's when they started laughing. They're like, what are you talking about?
And it's funny because at the lowest levels, I feel like, any like junior high or JV team even has two coaches who their only responsibility, the one guy who's known as the get back coach, who, when the players start to creep toward that side, get back. We don't want to get flagged. Get back. And you always have the one guy on 3rd and long that you have the screen draw coach. Screen draw. It's
usually the special teams coach that does that. Yeah. I remember our first experience with the get back coach. I'm like, well, you say that a lot. Like, no, that was Floyd's job.
Yeah. And I saw some people on social media, Georgia fans, complaining about that being a penalty. I agree with the broadcast when they said that's so dangerous for the officials, where they need to know they can run down to be in a position. Because if that official's out of position, then you're complaining, well, why isn't he there to make the call? You have to give them a clear path to be able to run. I don't have any problem with that flag.
Oh, neither do I. I mean, it was a big play and a big mistake. That's what it was. But
this has been a very whiny cycle for SEC teams in general.
we'll get to that here. Oh,
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and speaking of SEC teams, I'm not sure you can qualify them as an SEC team, but technically they are. They're like, I heard this morning. Texas is like an SEC transfer portal team. They're still kind of getting their feet wet but whatever. This was the opener of the quarterfinal, and it might have been the game of the playoffs so far. Texas and Arizona State. Arizona State fell behind. It was 17-3, and with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, it was 24-8, and they stormed back. I'm gonna be completely honest. I didn't see any of this game except for the highlights. I was busy doing something else we'll talk about. But so what did you think of the comeback here for the Sun Devils?
I've got to tell you, I had not watched a second of Arizona State football all year.
Same.
And by the fourth quarter, I had become the biggest Arizona State fan. It was so much fun. Like they're pulling out halfback passes and and plus just it was nice to see after people were like, oh, the SMUs and the Boise States don't belong there. Give us the, I don't care how many losses Alabama has. Losses don't matter. It was nice to see one of these teams that, quote unquote, wasn't supposed to be there prove that this is why you have those teams. So this is why people watch the basketball, NCAA basketball tournament. Sure, 15-2 is usually a 40-point game for the 2 seed, but you have it so that you can have the Valparaisos and the Bucknells and the Weber States, pull upsets or have games like we saw from Arizona State and Texas.
And this is also the reason we don't have the mercy rule. I mean, where 24-8 is not a mercy rule, but 24-8 with 10 minutes left in the game, you think this game is over.
Yeah, and Arizona State could do nothing on offense, really. When it got to 24-8, I almost flipped over. I think I was like watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. And Curb Your Enthusiasm episodes that I'd seen already like 5 years ago. I was like, wow, I'd rather watch that than Texas roll to like a 31-8, boring win.
So
I'm glad I stuck with it.
yeah, well, during the comeback, one of the big moments here in the fourth quarter, about a minute left, Arizona State wide receiver Melquan Stovall catches a pass around midfield, and he was met immediately with a big hit from Texas safety Michael Taff. And as someone who's not rooting for either team, when I saw the play letter of the law, that looked like targeting to me.
100%.
What did it look like to you?
I assumed that it was. I didn't think the player should have been ejected. I didn't see any malice.
No.
It's something that 15 years ago would have been a clean hit. But letter of the law in 2025, the receiver was defenseless because he was coming out of a turn.
Just turn around.
And it was there's no question if it was helmet to helmet. He wasn't. He didn't lead with the helmet. He didn't try to spear him Chuck Cecil style.
No. It was.
But
it
intense
was,
irrelevance. He still went in head to head, and he knocked that kid out.
And that's where letter of the law comes in. I'm totally with you. It was not a butt as they put on the sticker on your helmet, but it was.
Yeah, I assumed when the replay was taking so long, I thought they were trying to decide whether to eject the kid. I never thought they were even for a second considering whether or not it was targeting. And when they came out and the refs were like, "Nope, all good, let's play," I was like,
"All right then."
That's when it felt like some shady business a little bit. That's when you start.
Instead of a 1st and 10 at the Longhorn 37 with a minute left to get this is a tie ball game now.
Yeah.
Instead of getting that possible field goal, Arizona State ends up punting the ball. It was like 4th and 5. They punted it away, and we go 2 overtimes for Texas. So if you're an Arizona State fan, you're really salty about that call, and I think rightfully so. I
agree. And that's another one where I saw on the pass to the oh my God, the Heisman Trophy kid. I'm so old. Like who's the kid who threw the touchdown pass? Skeetabo? I forget the running back's name or how to say it, but it was clear.
Number 4.
Yeah,
the kid was number 4. The only thing, again, remember, I'm watching a movie at this point. I saw the highlight of this dude's getting his face mask ripped off him, and he just stands up and he's like.
So
that was a cool picture.
The defensive back made clear contact before the ball got there, and then ripped him down by the face mask. And I saw Texas fans online who were like, "What about the offensive pass interference? Because the receiver slowed down." The receiver can slow down.
They really said that.
Yeah. Have they never heard of adjusting to a ball in the air? Like if a receiver makes an adjustment on a back shoulder throw, is that offensive pass interference? I saw Texas fans who were complaining about a missed, like they thought that was the bad officiating takeaway from that game, and not.
If we go back a couple of weeks to the airing of our grievances, the whole concept of like when a receiver drops a ball and just gets up looking for a flag, when it's like that, it's not like an egregious thing. Like he was messed with, but it was the face mask for me that dude had his helmet pulled off of him.
And he got bulldogged down to the ground by the face mask.
Yes. No, the picture of him standing up, it was like very Captain America like I'm the man on this team. Just not enough to overtake the might and power of Texas and the SEC in the second overtime. And as we talk about strength and might, does it get any stronger or mightier than what Ohio State did to Oregon?
It pains me to say, but Ohio State looks good.
Ohio State looked like Ohio State. Oregon just looked bad.
Yeah,
especially early. This game was over at halftime. It might have been over after the Buckeyes' first two scores. Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith looked like they were NFL ready.
Yeah, I saw the ESPN people. I think it might have been Dan Orlovsky who was saying you're going to see teams tank for Jeremiah Smith. I don't know if I've ever seen NFL teams tank for a wide receiver
Down the line. Well, Marvin Harrison was just as skilled, and
you mean Maserati Marv?
Yes. What do we call Jeremiah Smith? Jeep Jeremiah or
Jeremiah was a bullfrog? No, that doesn't make any sense.
But I don't know if you're going to tank for a wide receiver when everybody needs quarterbacks. But this was the $20 million powerhouse that a lot of people thought we were getting at the beginning of the year, and I didn't watch much of it. But what I watched, I tell you, this was. Can anybody stop the freight train that is Ohio State? I don't. If Oregon looked like this, I don't know.
I mean, I would have to say yes, if only because I still have fresh memories in mind of that Michigan game. And I know that's a different animal. I know that's a rivalry game.
I wonder if Michigan woke up the beast. I wonder if Michigan has to apologize to all the other teams in the playoffs. Like,
by the way, what do we make of a format where all the teams that were given a bye?
You getting ahead of yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh. That's that. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, again, not a ton of things to say about Penn State Boise, kind of the same way. I was at a holiday party where so let me try to paint the picture of who this guy is. My wife's aunt's daughter's fiance. So my wife's cousin's fiance, Penn State alum, Penn State fan, was legit worried about this game. Told me all about how poor the defensive front was, and Ashton Judy's going to single-handedly beat Penn State, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't do any research to go to this holiday party. Like, I looked some stuff up for the show here so I don't sound like a complete idiot. But I looked it up, and Penn State's rush defense was ranked 8th in the country. They averaged 101 yards per game allowed. Yeah. Genty finished the game with 104 yards. That is an outstanding performance because Genty's averaging, 650 yards per game? 35.4 yards per carry, 18 touchdowns. He's like a video game. So, like, what Penn State did to him, and I told him, I said, what are you worried about? What, really? Come on.
Yeah, I was hearing from some Penn State fan friends of mine, and a common refrain was like, oh, James Franklin will find a way to blow it. And it's like, at a certain point, you have to give James Franklin his flowers. Like,
he has to beat Ohio first, or he has to beat Michigan first. I mean, but Boise and SMU, the path Penn State has taken to where they are right now, easier than, I don't know, say in Ohio or in Oregon, which, whew, there we go. As you know, we bring this up. If you look, which path do you want? I mean,
well, I'll tell you what, I don't want to buy. I think when the brackets came out and a lot of people felt Penn State was being rewarded for losing the Big Ten title game. Because, I mean...
we had said that weeks ago.
Yeah. I mean, for Oregon to win what I feel was the best conference in the country this year, and to be rewarded with having to play the second best team maybe in the country in Ohio State. Like, that matchup on paper before we saw what Ohio State actually did on the field at the Rose Bowl, that looked like, if the bracket had been put together differently, could have been the national title game.
And I've heard, complaints the wrong word, but suggestions that the NCAA go to an 8-team bracket. I mean, you can mix and match all you. There's never going to be anything perfect. But if next year, because I think we have this for a couple of years at least, if next year you have the same situation and every team with a bye loses, first of all, I think you have to look at how it's seeded. Because the whole conference championship thing, I'm sorry that the conference champion of the Mountain West is not on the same level as the number 2 team in the Big Ten or the SEC, and probably not even on the same level as the number 2 team in the ACC. So the way they have seeds put together, that's got to change. And I don't know if they can change it next year or if they will, but I'm not really into Arizona State or Boise State getting buys.
So two things there. Number one, I love that just a little bit ago, people were complaining that 12-team field was too exclusionary to keep out, the Alabamas and, Miami and whoever. And now it's like, oh, we're letting too many teams in. We need an 8-team. It's like, okay. So clearly
I think it was a means of getting rid of the bye as opposed to going to 16, which would be ridiculous.
Right. But clearly no format is going to please everybody. So that's one. But also for people to say that this format doesn't work after 1 year is the definition of small sample size, people. Like, there have been years where the NCAA tournament has had no number 1 seeds in the Final Four. That doesn't mean we're going to blow up how we do March Madness. Sometimes there are anomalies. Sometimes these things happen like this. That's why it's fun.
I'm a board gamer, and I like to play a lot of new stuff. And there's a website that I go to it's like a social media site for board gaming, and people talk. And what's interesting to me is somebody will say, I just played this game for the first time. I played it once, and I think it's broken. And people tell them, like, do you understand, like, when designers make games, they test this game hundreds of times, maybe thousands of times. You played it once. Try it again. Yeah. So that's why I said, like, if next year comes and we have awful seeding and we have a 5, a 6, a 7, and an 8 in the national semifinals, then it might be something to look at. But I would start with seeding. I don't mind the bye. It was what for Oregon, it was almost a month since they had last played, and Ohio had played a game last week. For Boise State, how long had they played? Penn State played a game like 10 days ago or something like that, where they were able to get their game legs under them. I don't know if there's a solution for that other than to change the number from 8 to 16 or whatever. I think you're going to have a situation with buys, and you're going to have a situation where coaches and coaching staffs put players in situations that, are almost game ready. And that's just the way it's going to have to be. Coaching staffs can look at this. They have data, and they know they just have to change the way they prepare.
My takeaway from this is that this, for me anyway, as a fan, is working. Like, okay, a lot of the games have been fairly lopsided, but Penn State wasn't as big a blowout as the score indicates. That was a pretty competitive game through like 2.5, 3 quarters.
I mean, it was a game I wasn't worried about, but yeah, it wasn't Ohio State. Oregon was the outsider, and in a game that like you said, could have been a championship game. Ohio State just steamrolled them. I wasn't concerned that Boise State was going to mount a comeback. I just wasn't, but it wasn't bad football.
Right. And I mean, under the previous format, we had blowouts. I mean, look at TCU in the national championship game. They're still giving up touchdowns. I mean, these things happen.
Touchdowns to that TCU team too.
Yeah.
That was 120 combined points scored. Oh, brutal. But no, I'm with you in the fact that it's a 1-year sample size. You can't look at it like food. Like, I can eat liver and onions and say, I don't like this. I don't need a second try.
Right.
It's not like that.
And also the fact that we have a Final Four now where all of the 4 top seeds were beaten, I think that's a feature instead of a bug.
Yeah. And so in years past where we only had 4 and that 5th place team really felt like, I could compete, and it was like, no, you couldn't. This is proof that they can, and because if we had a national Final Four, it's probably Oregon, Texas. Does Notre Dame and Penn State make it? I don't think so. I think it's probably Georgia and.
If this were 20 years ago, if we're going under the old BCS format, we're probably looking at like an Oregon-Georgia final. Just take the best from the SEC and the best from the Big Ten, and
or the best of whoever's left.
Right.
With the old BCS, the Big Ten wasn't as strong, but yeah.
Yeah, and the other factor that makes this interesting, and I think we've seen it play out, and we just in talking about it, we've alluded to it, is how the SEC just isn't what it had been. The NIL money is the great equalizer.
It's almost like other conferences are allowed to do what the SEC had been doing for years.
I think it's a damning indictment of, look, every major conference, most major programs have had dirty money flowing through them. Like, I will tell you, I'm sure Michigan had sweetheart deals and incentive deals to lure kids before NIL. A lot of people have dirty hands. But it was just an open secret that in the Deep South, if you could run a 4.340, we're going to buy your mama a car.
I think the envelopes were a little thicker at Alabama.
I still remember Charles Barkley was talking about how, Charles Barkley obviously played basketball at Auburn. And he was talking about how he had heard that Cam Newton was given $200,000 to come to Auburn. And someone said, Charles, that's dirty money. And Barkley said, $200,000? You call that dirty money? I'll call that a damn bargain.
My first thought was that's it.
Now everyone can do it. And now it's just funny how that's brought the SEC back down to earth very quickly.
200,000 isn't getting you a quarterback. Like, first of all, getting you a quarterback like Cam Newton, but it's not getting you a quarterback, I don't think.
No, and I was reading this week, Shedeur Sanders was the most highly paid in NIL money this year at north of $4 million. Like, that is an incentive to stay in school.
No, before the whole NIL concept, what you heard was, well, they have insurance plans or insurance policies that they could take out on themselves, not to the tune of $4 million.
No,
and for the billions of dollars these kids are bringing into the universities, I have no problem with these kids getting what's theirs.
No, and because the old system felt like some sort of form of indentured servitude. Like, I remember an anecdote from the book. I know we both love the book Fab Five about Michigan basketball by Mitch Albom. And it was something about Chris Webber being in the school bookstore, and he saw, his number 4 for sale for like $60, and he wouldn't see a penny of it.
Like, I'm out here driving. Jalen Rose, like, I'm driving a green Honda with a broken door. Like,
and not only that, like, you're risking torn ACLs or broken bones or, like a Kevin Ware sort of life-changing injury.
I get and I understand the old mentality of you were getting a free education. Is your education worth $1 billion at the University of Michigan?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as an out-of-state student at the University of Michigan, your education's probably worth $250,000.
Yeah, about what Auburn was paying Cam Newton.
Yeah, so Cam Newton was getting an education plus a little something.
Yeah, so that was the bargain. He was learning a little bit about, real life economics and macroeconomics.
He majored in real world economics.
A little bit. So, it's funny. We talked about Michigan and Alabama in that last segment. In another episode of This Is Why We Play the Game, our Michigan Wolverines ended 2024 playing in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Alabama, one of those SEC teams that felt they belonged in the playoffs regardless of their record. And, we all know what happened to Michigan after their national championship in terms of what players they lost, what coaches they lost. Alabama came into this season with a returning quarterback. Yes, they had a brand new coach, which my father will tell you is not Nick Saban. Who is?
He's right.
But Michigan pulls off an impressive bookend, starting 2024 with a Rose Bowl win against Alabama, ending 2024 with a ReliaQuest Bowl win. Tim, this game was something else. I'll let you start. What are your thoughts on the ReliaQuest? Are we giving ReliaQuest enough Who sponsored this? ReliaQuest?
I think we met our quota. This so we were texting before the game, and I was like, I think Michigan loses.
I'll put the scores out there just because I was with you.
Yeah.
You were a little bit sourer than I was, I think. You said Alabama was going to win 31-14. I had Alabama 27-17. So you had them winning by 17. I had them winning by 10.
Yeah, it just seemed like, Michigan resting as many guys as they were, given, a lot of young guys their first starts. Alabama not doing that.
Alabama had a handful not play, but I don't know if Alabama's sittings or seats or benches or whatever were as big a names as the ones Michigan had.
Right.
Michigan had 4 on both sides of the ball that were all 8 starters. And I'll read the names to you, Tim. On defense, Will Johnson, who hadn't really played since the USC game, Josiah Stewart, big edge guy, and the 2 big tackles, Kenneth Grant, and Mason Graham. Those 2 guys are the reason Michigan beat Ohio State. So they're not playing in this game.
Right.
And then for an offense, our offense, which struggled all year, both running backs, Mullings and Edwards, out. One of the offensive linemen Hinton, out. And then maybe the most reliable of all of our offensive players all year, Colston Loveland.
I love the tight ends. Yeah.
So people missing on both sides, but Michigan's, they were missing more, I think.
And that just all contributed to make this the funniest outcome possible. For Alabama to be yelling, it should have been us. It should have been us. And for, and I like Kirk Herbstreit, but for him to basically be like, the regular season doesn't matter. It's about brand awareness. Alabama should be there. And then for Alabama to go down and just, pee down its
brand
leg.
Awareness? Do you see brand awareness? It says national champion. Brand awareness. Come on,
but
Kirk.
I feel like what Kirk was saying was that, Alabama should have been there over automatic bids for the SMUs.
Over SMU, yeah.
And, which is funny because before we went to even the BCS system, the whole debate about a college football playoff was it would make the regular season irrelevant.
Yeah.
And,
that was Mike Greenberg's thing. He's like, the regular season is a playoff.
Right.
And I always retorted with, well, why do we have a 1-loss national champion then? Because they lost. They should be out.
Well, now you have people basically advocating that the regular season should be irrelevant, that it doesn't matter if Alabama lost to Oklahoma. They belong anyway because they're Alabama.
Even 40 points to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, right. And you have the Kirk Herbstreits and the Paul Feinbaums who are arguing, it doesn't matter. They've won before, so they should be back to have an opportunity to win again. That's not how this works.
Well, if
you wanted
Feinbaum,
to be there, you should have stopped Oklahoma from embarrassing you in prime time.
I think Feinbaum has stock in Nick Saban and Alabama. I think Feinbaum thinks Saban's ghost is still there. But yeah, after this game, I saw him on TV. He was waving the white flag. He said he's done with Alabama. I'll believe it when I see it.
I'll allude to a movie we're going to talk in more depth about later, The Big Lebowski. Feinbaum's like the sheriff who tells Lebowski to get out of Malibu. Feinbaum's like this corrupt cop who's like, I don't know, Nick Saban draws a lot of water around these parts.
Caleb DeBoer, you ain't drawing nothing.
Yeah.
But what's funny about this game, as we're watching, the weather in the first quarter, there was a monsoon in Tampa, and Michigan, I think they brought their big cleats. Jalen Milroe looked like he was running in tennis shoes because he was unsure of himself. He wasn't cutting hard, and when he did, he fell down. If this game was played on a dry field, he had some lanes very similar to the Rose Bowl, where he had a lane to the left, but he decided to go up straight because he didn't see it. The weather helped Michigan a lot, and it hurt Alabama, especially in the first quarter. And after the first quarter, this felt like the Ohio State game where Michigan it's 3rd and 8, and we're running the football in the third quarter. It's 3rd and 8, and we're running the football right into the middle of the line. Like, we're not even running a trap or outside. I think Sharon Moore he played field position and he played defense. The second half, 6 total points scored, 3 for each in the fourth. There was no offense until Alabama's final drive, which really felt like Alabama's final drive in the Rose Bowl in overtime, where they got down, 4th down, Jalen Milroe couldn't make a play, and all the videos I saw from the ReliaQuest Bowl with people pulling their phones out, and the cool point of view perspective from the stands was really neat. The eruption of Michigan fans, a really good way to end the year. And I think that this was a great introduction for Jordan Marshall, for other players on defense. I had his name. I didn't write it down. Number 6, Hillman, I think his name is. He didn't have a great day statistically. Like, you look in the box score, he only had 4 tackles. But he seemed to be all over the field. It looked like he had a great day. He hustled. This is an audition for next year. And when announcers say, like, Michigan has all the momentum going into next year, come on. Their spring game is in April. What kind of they have momentum to go back to class now, and you can wait. Nobody looks back at the ReliaQuest Bowl during training camp and say, "Oh, wow, we got momentum now." It's good to end the year on a win and get game film on guys like Jordan Marshall and Hillman, where you didn't see them in the regular season. So I'm really glad that the 8 big Wolverines who are going to the NFL didn't play. Good for them, not risking injury, and it gets us film on young kids. I like that.
Yeah,
in this kind of game,
I felt like the defensive front was very active, very disruptive, especially obviously in that first quarter.
You Wink Martindale. That's coaching. That's coaching, man.
And as far as going forward, I mean, obviously the big question mark was at quarterback this year, and I think that's more than been addressed in recruiting.
It's with either Jordan Davis or Bryce Underwood. Yeah, I think they're both steps up. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, with this game, even with all the turnovers, the first quarter was a disaster for Alabama between the footing and the turnovers. I did not feel comfortable with a 16-0 lead after every break possible going Michigan's way.
The second quarter, when Alabama scored the 10, that's when I'm like, okay, well, maybe the foot's coming. It's only going to strike midnight on Cinderella eventually. It didn't strike it in Ohio. It's got to strike it here in Tampa.
It almost felt like the booth was waiting for it. Like, okay, Michigan had its fun, but here comes big bad Alabama.
Had its fun.
They're not big bad Alabama right now. They're a middle of the road SEC team. Not middle of the road. Still upper echelon, like top
3rd or 4th.
Five, top
LSU feels mid-tier now. Ole Miss, I think, feels like it's gone over LSU. I remember LSU used to be this big power. They feel mid-level. I think Alabama's still above an LSU.
Right, yeah. Like Alabama's still above the South Carolinas, who got shown the door by Illinois. The SEC really just took it on the chin this bowl season.
You know what? I don't look at bowl games as a measure of conference play because again, Michigan's without its starters, Alabama's playing without starters, and possibly the mentality that we belong in the playoff and now we're stuck here in Tampa. There's something to that with college kids.
I think
I don't buy into the whole bowl game sets the tone for a conference, but you're not wrong. The SEC did not have a good bowl season.
And you talk about that mentality of just missing out on the playoff, and then you have maybe a lot of kids sit, and maybe some kids hang their heads. I think we definitely saw that last year with Florida State.
Yeah,
when they didn't get the top 4, and then they went out and just got trucked, in their bowl game.
They also lost 17 of their starting defensive starters.
Right. Well, right. That's what I'm saying. Between sitting and then the people who do play, basically feeling like, yes, this is my audition, but the ultimate score doesn't matter. It's how I perform individually. I think some of that sets in.
I don't know if Alabama came in with that thought, but it doesn't matter because Michigan won, and that makes us happy, and that's a good thing. It was a big game for you and me. And my dad said he didn't watch it. I believe him because he's been down on Kalen DeBoer all year. So, maybe the coaching search starts after next year. I don't think they get rid of him after this year.
I was going to ask, how long a leash do you think they give him?
One more year.
Yeah, I
think Alabama fans are still, harboring we're Alabama. We deserve to be in the playoff. We deserve this and this. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised DeBoer didn't have success almost right away with that team. I didn't think they lost a ton after last year. They had some transfers, but they had almost the same team from the Rose Bowl last year. Maybe the preparation. Maybe my dad has a point that they just weren't as diligent. Like Nick Saban is a Bill Belichick's disciple, and Bill Belichick can tell you exactly what he's going to do in the middle of the third quarter if the team's on the left hash mark with 5 minutes left on a 3rd and 6. If the defense is in a 3-4 with their nickel package in and the rope, he can tell you exactly what he's doing. I don't know if DeBoer preps like that. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
another year at least. You got to give me a year, but that might be it.
I remember like back when we were doing like preseason talk about football, I thought Alabama. I know everyone was high on Georgia, but I was very high on Jalen Milroe. I thought he had a good second half of the season last year. I thought he was going to make another leap, and he sort of stagnated or maybe even regressed a little bit. And some of that might have been that he didn't have the talent around him this year that he did last year. Some of it might have been that he didn't have the coaching this year that he had last year.
I think it's more coaching than talent. But I don't know enough about Alabama's team. I know more about Michigan's roster than Alabama's roster. And I can tell you Michigan, when they lost Roman Wilson, their wideout room just went way down. I don't know if Alabama had the same issue with, Alabama wideouts. There's been a lot of good ones. It really has.
Yeah, and Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones.
You go all the way back to Julio Jones, but even like Devontae Smith and I can't think of the guy last year. They had a really good wideout. It didn't feel like Milroe had those kind of weapons around him, and the running game doesn't get better this year. So, but I think you have to give Alabama's coaching staff another year before you worry. And I said after that, then that's that. But that was our big game of the bowl season. You switch things around now. Maybe the biggest game in football all year. Both teams coming into this one, Vikings at Lions. This is the first time that we've had 2 14-game winners in a game, and the stakes couldn't be higher. The winner is coming out of this with the NFC North title. The winner is coming out of this with the number 1 seed in the NFC.
And more
the loser
is the 5.
The loser drops to 5 and has to travel. And as of right now, I don't know where they're going. So Lions coach Dan Campbell says this is not going to be like a playoff game. Tim, is he right?
I think he's saying that to downplay expectations outside of his locker room, but I think everyone on both teams 100% is treating this like a playoff game, because not only is it a division rivalry game without the other things that are at stake, but it is so important to get that bye, and more almost as important to avoid having to travel for a first round game.
This is class. What's strange though is Dan Campbell doesn't subscribe to this coaching mentality. Dan Campbell will tell you what he thinks. Dan Campbell's not a Bill Belichick or we're on to Cincinnati. For someone who goes for it on 4th down 96% of the time, and who is like, he is as player as a coach. Like, I loved watching him on Hard Knocks. I almost ran through a wall for him, and I'm a Bears guy. So I don't know if he really feels this way. Like, well, you know what? We're going to win this anyway, and it's just a regular season game. First of all, can we just both acknowledge how stupid I am? who I thought Minnesota was going to have the third worst record in the league. 14-2 with this roster. And I know some Vikings fans who are almost waiting for midnight to hit. 14 wins for Minnesota is incredible. Detroit has had their injury issues coming in. I don't think you're wrong. I think the bye is the most important thing for either one of these teams. But this is absolutely this should be a playoff atmosphere tomorrow at Ford Field. It really should be.
Yeah, and I mean, give Minnesota its flowers, because especially after that J.J. McCarthy injury, and people were like,
"Hey, man,
we're going to recycle Sam Darnold," but Darnold's been a stud. Got named to the Pro Bowl team, and rightfully so. And you know what? You love to see it because, and we've made this point on previous episodes that
I'm a Bears guy. I don't love to see it.
Well, just on a personal level, I think you love to see a guy who kind of went through the desert of an NFL career and has finally found his oasis. But the Vikings scare me because I feel like Justin Jefferson, if it comes to it where the Eagles have to deal with either of these teams, they both worry me more than any team in the AFC, if I'm being honest. But Justin Jefferson, I feel like, has the potential to have a postseason like Larry Fitzgerald did in 2008, where he just puts a team on his back and could take him to a Super Bowl.
The cool part about Justin, you can't just focus on him because then Jordan Addison gets you. The Vikings have a really good receiver room, and I can't. Their tight end, was he the guy from Detroit before?
On
the phone.
Yeah.
T.J. Hawkinson.
Yes.
That's the guy's name. He formerly from Detroit.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold has weapons, and he's used them well. He's been coached up. And you kind of wonder about the future of J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. But as far as tomorrow's game, Detroit can't focus solely on one guy, which makes it a problem. The Vikings are a problem matchup for almost any defense. And as an Eagles fan, going to Minnesota as well. I know they play inside. No. Does Minnesota play outside now?
Oh, boy. I keep thinking of the old Metrodome.
The old Metrodome. Okay, so now get my producer on the Vikings home field is now U.S. Bank Stadium. It looks like it's an indoor stadium, yeah.
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Which I hate. Can we talk about that next week? How much we hate indoor stadiums.
Yeah, because I'll tell you what. You talk
about it now. I hate it. Play in the snow.
Like, people love games at Lambeau because of things like the Ice Bowl and fans seeing their breath. Could you imagine games outdoors in January in Minnesota?
They want to build a $3 billion stadium for Chicago as an indoor stadium. And what bugs me is we both know why. Why do you build an indoor stadium in Chicago? 3 words. Host, Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say the weather, but yeah.
Hosting a Super Bowl. That's
the same
all
way as
these teams want to do.
Yeah, because, hey, look, the Eagles won a Super Bowl in Minnesota. I get why it's a boost for the city but yeah, I would much rather see every NFC North team play outdoors.
While the last bad weather Super Bowl I can remember was Super Bowl 41, and the Bears were on the wrong side of it, but not because of the weather, not because it was raining. This is like they couldn't adjust to Peyton Manning throwing flat passes to his running backs. The Super Bowl that was in New York, I don't know. Yeah. I don't think it snowed. And it might have snowed during the week, and that it screws up the whole Super Bowl week and this and this and this. Somebody like you and I, who is probably not going to a Super Bowl live, I want to see a fun football game. And the playoff games that were in New England that were like minus 37, you'd see the little weather bug at the bottom. Yeah, minus 30. It's like, that's just incredible that these guys are out there. Their heads are steaming.
Yeah, look at the Tuck Rule game. The snow that fell during that game just adds to it.
Absolutely. That Wolverine on Wolverine crime, Woodson stripping Brady, but not really. But yeah, unbelievable. So the loser of this game, let's get back to this. The loser is going to be the fifth seed. And right now, I don't know who they're playing. It's either going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or the Atlanta Falcons. One of those teams wins the South. One of those teams is out. Where would you rather go? Would you rather go to Tampa, where the weather's probably going to be okay? You got to deal with Baker Mayfield. Or do you go to Atlanta, where, Atlanta seems to be almost finding themselves?
I think Tampa has more potential to be a scary out than Atlanta does. I think Atlanta has a lower ceiling. I might be influenced by the fact that the Eagles have had their lunch money stolen by the Bucks twice now, between the playoffs last year and the game this year. But I just feel like Baker Mayfield's kind of in that Brett Favre mold a little bit, where he might go throw 3 interceptions, but he also might throw 5 touchdowns.
Same time.
Yeah, and he's going to have a lot of fun doing it. He's going to be out running, and he's going to be, just he scares me more than whatever Michael Penix.
Penix does, yeah.
Yeah.
I would totally agree, and it's the veteran thing. He's been there before, and this.
And I mean,
we'll talk about Tampa here in a second, but yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say Mayfield's another one like Darnold, where you like to see the success he's having, because he kind of went through the wilderness a little bit with
almost the same
Cleveland
story.
And Carolina, and yeah.
So I mean, you're an Eagles guy, and last week Detroit really didn't have to play their starters against San Francisco. That game was meaningless. Today or tomorrow's game was going to be the big one. The Eagles, again, same kind of concept. They're locked into the 2 seed. They're going to host the 7 seed no matter what. Right now, it would be Green Bay. Green Bay could actually move up to 6 if the Commanders lose to the Cowboys. But the Packers almost certainly beat Chicago. Washington, Dallas might be a toss-up. Doesn't matter to Philly either way. Big story coming out of Philadelphia is whether or not Saquon Barkley should play. We both know he's not playing. Are you okay with that, Tim?
Oh, absolutely. Especially with what happened to A.J. Brown last year, where he got hurt in the regular season finale and then couldn't go against Tampa.
Against Tampa, there it is.
As much as we want to see Saquon break Eric Dickerson's record, I want to see that less than I don't want to see him get up holding a hamstring or see him staying on the ground clutching his knee. The record isn't worth not having him for a first-round playoff game.
I don't know what Saquon came out and said, but I remember what he said against the Giants the last time when he had 189 yards rushing or something like that. And Sirianni's like, dude, you're like 8 yards short of your career high. And he said, let the young kids eat. I don't think this matters to Barkley at all.
It seemed to affect him a little bit, that he said something to the effect of, it would be nice to see my family name in the NFL record books, which I get that. But, as nice as that is, show everyone your Super Bowl ring at a family barbecue this summer. That'll be better.
I think you almost knew this last week. They got him 101 yards, and there was still time left, and they pulled him out. They could have kept rolling with it to try to get that number higher, but once he hit 2,000 yards, that was it. And I think one of the reasons is Sirianni's looking at this team, and the big injury right now is Jalen Hurts. He's still in concussion protocol. And I saw an article on SportsIllustrated.com. Patrick McAvoy wrote on Thursday, I want to say, so I will. The Eagles should consider pursuing Ryan Tannehill. Did you see this? What do you think of that?
That I hadn't seen that, and that makes me worry that maybe there's something that we don't know about Jalen Hurts.
I think this is just a writer looking for clicks, but
yeah,
still.
Because here's the thing: is Tannehill going to be like demonstrably better than Kenny Pickett or Tanner McKee?
Probably.
I liked what I saw from McKee last week. I liked the back shoulder throw on the touchdown to A.J. Brown. I I would almost like to see him this week just to see what he could do instead of Pickett. Yeah, give the kid the keys to the car. See what he does.
Do the 99 Wolverines where you let Brady play the first quarter, you let Henson play the second quarter. It was Pickett hurt too. Pickett got hurt against last week.
Yeah, well, he got dinged up against Washington. His ribs, I believe.
I thought it was a rib thing. So yeah. I don't know what his injury report listing is, but my thought on Tannehill coming in. How much of I don't know what Sirianni's playbook looks like compared to what Tannehill ran. I mean, NFL teams run the same stuff mostly. How much can you digest in 4 days? Really? I mean, they haven't signed him yet, and this was back on Thursday. So how much you'd want to get him to play tomorrow? How much is he really going to – and he hasn't played all year, so you got to get the rust off of him. So, I mean, I think he's a better quarterback than Pickett, but – at this stage of the game, I think it was a fun article to read, and this is what we could have. But I think you're hoping that Hurts can come back by next week.
I agree with that because it's fun speculation in theory, but in the real world, if you didn't like your quarterback room beside Jalen Hurts, you would have gone out and gotten Daniel Jones. A couple weeks ago and let
that's true.
Actually get reps in the system in practice. If the Eagles went out and actually signed Tannehill at this point, it just reeks of being a panic move.
Desperation, yeah. I like the Eagles' chances to beat New York either way, but going into the playoffs next week, again, if they get Green Bay is one of those. That's a scary team that you probably don't want to see, especially if Hurts isn't playing, because they're a true wild card. They could go out and score 50, but they could go out and do absolutely nothing. Speaking of scoring 50, the Packers play the Bears tomorrow, and as a Bears fan, I'm already looking forward to the NFL draft. The Bears finishing with Green Bay felt at the beginning of the year like it was going to be what Minnesota Detroit is, or what the Atlanta Tampa Bay situation is. The winner might get into the playoffs and the loser doesn't. That's definitely not the case in Chicago. Caleb Williams has had a rough season. He's been sacked 67 times. He's ranked 4th on the all-time getting sacked list. Quick, Mr. Smarty Pants for you, Tim. Can you name the names ahead of Caleb Williams on that list?
David Carr.
Yes.
Is Cunningham on there? He got sacked an awful lot.
Randall Cunningham in 1986. You got it. He got sacked 72 times. And I'm not going to make you guess again because David Carr ranks number 1 and number 3. So you got the names. You got the names ahead of him. If Caleb Williams, so Caleb Williams sacked 67 times. If he is sacked twice, he will jump David Carr's number 3. He needs 6 sacks to break Randall Cunningham. I don't think he's going to get sacked, 10 times to break the all-time record. Plus, it's 17 games, so you have that record situation. Saquon not going to get the Eric Dickerson record. I don't think Caleb Williams gets David Carr's record, but he's had a really interesting rookie season in that his 3,393 yards rank him 5th for the franchise. However, everybody's looking at him as a bust and calling Jaden Daniels a generational rookie, where Jaden Daniels only has 100 more yards passing, has more interceptions, and I think 4 or 5 more touchdowns. It comes down to coaching and the fact that Washington has changed their organizational structure and Chicago hasn't. Chicago is a dumpster fire that just has more gasoline poured on it week after week since the Hail Mary. And Washington has just been a stronger foundational landing spot for Daniels. I think we talked about this last time. If we flip-flopped him, I don't think it matters.
Right. I think some of it's optics. I've seen a lot of people complain about the way Caleb Williams kind of conducts himself on the sideline, where he seems a little physically defeated, which when you get sacked that many times and when you don't have talent around you, you're going to look like that. And that's kind of like this vague accusation that dogged him at USC, where he was, crying, after losses, or, going over to his mother. And it's like, I want a guy who cares that much. I don't know. But
I think that he's experiencing failure at a point where he's never experienced it before. This is the definition of, what do you do when you experience some kind of pushback? You've been the man for as long as you can last, or as long as you can remember, and now you're experiencing a little bit of, problems and struggles that you'd never experienced before. They lost 10 games. They were 4-2 at one point. They were 4-2, and I thought they should have been 5-1. I thought they should have defeated the Colts. So
I think some of the problem with how we view Caleb Williams' rookie season is, like, Troy Aikman went 1-15 his rookie season.
And he was 3-13.
And he led the league in interceptions. Peyton Manning threw
like
close to 30
those,
interceptions. Yeah. But, we didn't have social media. We didn't have everyone creating this narrative of, Troy Aikman, #1 pick, and he's a bust. He had a little bit of a longer leash. Peyton Manning had a bit of a longer leash as a #1 who struggled his rookie year. Where in 2025, it doesn't feel like – I think that pressure becomes its own thing to be like, if you don't come out and have a Jaden Daniels like rookie season, you run the risk of everyone thinking you're a bust.
I think CJ Stroud ruined it for
everybody. Right. I mean, we talked about Baker Mayfield. That was the talk around him was, he went to Cleveland. He didn't light the world on fire right away. And everyone was like, oh, we're done with Baker. Write him off. He's done. And sometimes a quarterback gets failed by the organization that drafts him. Sometimes a quarterback just needs to learn the game,
I think that's part of what's going on with Caleb Williams, because Matt Eberflus was not an offensive coach, and the offensive coordinator that was brought in, and his name is escaping me right now. I don't think he obviously wasn't the right coach at the right time, which is why I think right now the coaching hire for Chicago, it might be the biggest decision that franchise has ever had to make. And it looks like Ryan Poles is going to be the one who makes it going into the draft. And right here on the screen, we have the top 10 NFL draft order and their associated records and who they're playing in week 18. I think Chicago is pretty much locked into anywhere either 7, 8, or 9. The biggest thing they need is a tackle. And whether it's this Campbell kid from LSU or the big tackle from Texas, at least a lot of the mock drafts I've seen, one of them is there at 9. Because New England, everybody thinks they're going to take Travis Hunter. Tennessee's looking at a quarterback. Cleveland's looking at there's a lot of teams that want different stuff. To the Will Johnson, Mason Grant, Michigan combo going 4 and 5 in a lot of them. So I'm not to the point where I think winning games hurt them. Like I said, they were 4-2. They had a shot at the playoffs. They just lost. Look at that, 10 in a row that they've lost. That's insane.
And it didn't help that they played in what is by far the best division in football this year.
Yeah. And the surprising Minnesota Vikings, Green Bay. I didn't think they were going to be as good as they are, but they're still that mid-level, getting to the playoff team, and Detroit coming in. I think we both thought was the prohibitive favorite in that division. It almost feels like those 4 wins were so long ago that it's frustrating once again to start looking at mock drafts instead of looking at playoff positioning as a Bears guy. But if they can build up the offensive line, you have to hit on this coaching hire, whether it's Cliff Kingsbury, who's interested allegedly, Ben Johnson, who came in, who's willing to come in to talk, or if it's some out of the box type thinking, it's got to be a winning move, or you're gonna call Caleb Williams a bust. He's gonna leave, and he's gonna make the playoffs in Miami.
Do you have a preference who they bring in?
I like Ben Johnson just because he's in the division. No, he knows the division, and he's worked with quarterbacks like he's made. Jared Goff has an awesome season this year, and so he'd be my choice.
He helped develop Tua in Miami.
He'd be my number one. I wouldn't be upset with Kingsbury.
Does the Kingsbury experience in Arizona? Also, I call the Kingsbury Experience as a band name. If we start a band, we're calling it the Kingsbury Experience. Yeah. Does his failure in Arizona give you any pause if Chicago hires him?
No, because I think Chicago is a different animal. I think they have similar issues, but they have a similar quarterback style, and I think that he has grown. I think Washington's that situation has washed a lot of that away. Anything's a step up from Eberflus, and Brown had a really nice year this year, where he started as like the quarterback scouting coach or something, and he moved all the way up in 1 year. You never see that. I think he advanced probably a little bit too quickly. Yeah, either one of those two I'd be cool with. We'll see.
Yeah, I feel like someone's going to back a truck full of money up to Ben Johnson's house, and he's going to be a head coach somewhere next year.
That worries me because it's not the McCaskies aren't going to dump a bunch of truck full of money. That's for sure. That's not their style.
I feel like someone's going to look at him as the big splash hire and just throw money at him with what he's done in Detroit.
We're going to get Eddie Munson or something. And it's okay if you don't know who that is.
Eberflus will show up to an interview with like a fake mustache.
The Bobby Valentine.
Yeah. They'll be like, Mr. Eberflus, your interview was 5 minutes ago. Why are you late? Oh, my watch must not be working. Oh, rooster didn't crow.
Time out. Oh, no. I don't think so.
You don't want him running your draft because you don't want him around when the Bears are on the clock. Oh.
That's a Vikings joke. That's not a Bears joke.
We've got a million of them.
Tell you what, when we put our rundown together earlier in the week, I thought we hadn't talked about the NBA in a while, and as someone who likes the NBA, I think let's let Tim talk. And then big news yesterday: Jimmy Butler suspended yesterday for, what do they call it? Conduct detrimental to the team, whatever that means. I mean, he went Shawn Michaels. He lost his smile, as you can see. Now the Heat are exploring trade options because he said he wants to get out of there. He scored only 9 points the other night, and he was benched. Tim, what do you make of this? Would you take a Jimmy Butler even if he lost his smile?
I like Jimmy Buckets. He kind of has this reputation from Philadelphia, Chicago, Minnesota, now in Miami. But I like what he brings to a team, and I get why he's frustrated in Miami. And I don't think he's going to be there. I think we'll see him in another color jersey, in 2025. I don't know where he's going to end up.
Where would you put him right now?
Who do I think is going to go after him?
Yeah. Who do you think is the most likely?
Boy, I don't know the financials of it, but if I'm thinking
that's notwithstanding, we'll make the money work.
I mean, part of me wonders with their reputation for splashy trades like this, I kind of wonder if LeBron wants to bring a Jimmy Butler in to the Lakers, because there were rumors about a month ago that they were trying to, when Milwaukee was struggling, that they were trying to get Damian Lillard. So I wonder if now that Butler might be available, I wonder if LA is going to be, calling Miami to see what it would take to put him in purple and gold.
Miami doesn't have a ton of leverage, so you're probably not going to ask for a lot in return. I saw this just today. Yahoo Sports, Vincent Goodwill says Butler is a plug-and-play star that can go anywhere, and he had him, dressed up for the Mavs, the Warriors, the Suns, the Rockets. I saw this. The Sporting News today entered the chat, 9 o'clock this morning, said the Grizzlies, Memphis has some first-round draft capital to dangle in front of Miami, and if they can make the money work, Memphis is fifth right now in the East. A move like that could solidify their playoff run and get them maybe to the upper half of the playoffs. I'm with you. I like Jimmy Butler. He shows up in the playoffs. He is a playoff problem. The thing about NBA trades, though, and you brought it up, it's the financials involved, like where you almost have to – you can't get rid of a bad contract without bringing on a bad contract, that kind of thing. Winning in the NBA is the hardest, I think.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if he ends up staying in the East. I don't think Miami wants to trade him, in conference.
Why? You see 4 Western Conference teams there.
And, I don't know how that would work with Luka and Kyrie and Jimmy Butler in Dallas. They'd have to roll a second basketball out there. They don't seem like they would maybe mesh so well.
I was intrigued by the Golden State-ness of that picture. Phoenix as well. Either one of those options. I agree about Kyrie and Luka together with Jimmy. Can we talk about how to make the NBA more interesting? 2 basketballs would do it. Like we made crazy rules in baseball.
What if we adopt like old school rock and jock rules?
Yeah, so I saw this a couple weeks ago where they wanted to change the 3-point line, get rid of the corner 3, and in the last 2 minutes the 4-pointer was a thing. I don't know. Like my first thought, I heard this on the radio. I wanted to call in and say, have you ever watched the rock and jock the basketball game? Because that's what you're doing. You're MTVing the NBA right now. We're that one game where we had Dan Cortez and his headband with the 25-pointer that was like a 30-foot shot or something, and you'd see all like these actresses trying to like score 25 points, and everybody was just like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, we're like 5 years away. We're like 5 years away from Jennifer Love Hewitt shooting like 25-footers.
But nobody thought of 2 basketballs. I like that idea.
Yeah, almost like if you remember playing knockout, like in gym class.
Yeah,
it would get frantic like that.
I mean, I don't.
And then if the other team gets the second basketball, they could try, like in knockout, like you could try to knock the other team's shot out of the air, like Scud missile style.
I think that would work a little bit better with what was that league that had like the trampolines? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it was on like Spike TV or something like that.
And I was like, dude, how is no one getting hurt doing this?
Yeah, that seems like a recipe for like guys to just end up like mosquitoes on a windshield, to just like trampoline and just.
But like they're both bouncing up 20 feet and like running into each other. Amazing stuff.
It combined the physical play of 90s basketball with the high potential for injury of any trampoline ever.
Have you ever gone to a Sky Zone before?
No, but there's a local place here where you can. It's like this big, almost like obstacle course, where it's like a game of tag on a series of trampolines.
On trampolines. So I've seen professional tag. That's crazy, first of all. But we took the kids to a Sky Zone years ago. And, well, first of all, if you're out there jumping, after 15 minutes, we talked before we went live about how sore I was from bowling yesterday. You jumping at a sky zone 15 minutes at our age, forget about it.
I can't even shower safely. And now you're going to propel me 15 feet into the air?
They have trampolines on the walls too, so you could jump into the wall. Oh my gosh, if these things were around when we were kids, we wouldn't be doing this show, first of all.
They would make me sign 2 waivers.
Not absolutely nice, but yeah, so we fixed basketball a little bit. So Celtics guy, and I'll follow the Knicks because they're from New York. We're like 2 and 3 in the East, and I've paid zero attention to the Knicks. But apparently they're hot. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They just lost their last game. Tim, how's Boston look to you? Talk them up.
You know, they had a nice win the other night in Minnesota.
I saw the highlights of that.
Yeah, I was watching it on TNT, and you know, Minnesota's tough, especially at home. And Boston did what they do best, which a lot of modern fans don't like. They went out, they jacked up a ton of threes, but they've got a roster that, you know, most nights is going to hit 40 to 50% from 3. And that's when Boston's dangerous. That's why I still think, you know, they're the best team in the East. And I think they're the best team in the league, is that they have the most explosive offense because they can go out, they can splash, you know, 25 threes and drop 120 points any given night.
I defer to your knowledge of your team. I know the Knicks were playing without Jalen Brunson. I don't know if he was hurt or I think they think there might have been an injury. I don't think it was like a load management thing. Tonight, one of the coolest matchups of our childhood, Knicks Bulls. Not the same as it was back then, but the Bulls coming in. ESPN has them at favorites, but they're 4 games under 500. I will not pay hardcore attention to the NBA until after the All-Star break, but that's coming up on us. So
I've been voting like a good citizen.
You said you voted 3 times, and I said you voted once for me, once for you, and then once for what was that other name I gave you? Do you remember?
No, once for the Holy Spirit. No, I don't remember.
I'm gonna call this out because it's kind of funny. You didn't ask about it. Oh no, where'd you say you voted? As I checked my phone during the show, but I did a random name generator on the internet. It's like, just give me a name because that's who you voted for.
Will you vote at all for the NBA All-Star game, or do you not?
I don't get into that. I vote for I vote for Major League Baseball's All-Star game because I feel like I know more. Like, I'd just be either voting for like Jalen Brunson, or I'd go to the stats page. Like, okay, who has the most points per game? And that's not necessarily how you should do it, I don't think.
Yeah, so, I mean, but that's exactly how I do it. Like, I want to see Tatum and Brown. I don't know if Jaylen Brown's one of the 5 best in the East, but I'd like to see him out there. I want to see LaMelo Ball.
Giannis, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jokic, Tatum, and Halliburton.
I mean, I vote for Wembanyama just because he's always fun to, you know, I want to see a front court of Jokic, Anthony Davis, and Victor Wembanyama on the court at the same time.
Doesn't matter, though.
No, but in my mind, you know, it'll be fun, even if reality probably won't match that.
When you and I sat at my house on Sundays playing Tecmo Super Bowl, rolling through a 16-0 season, then, like, this is, I think you like this a lot. Like, we would look at the stats, and we would build a Pro Bowl team based on what happened that year. And that's back in the 90s when they actually hit during the Pro Bowl, and they didn't score 216 points in an NBA All-Star game. So,
and that was also, you know, just from the video game end of it, that's when that was a novel thing that you could create your own Pro Bowl team with, like, guys who, like, you know, outside of QB Eagles and QB Bills, had their actual names on the screen and like attributes. Like,
there's QB that wasn't in it.
It was QB Bills, QB Eagles, QB Browns.
There was one more that I remembered. It was QB Browns.
Yeah, I don't think Kozar gave permission.
One of the greatest games of all time. So he missed out. Oh well. What are you gonna do? All right, good deal. So we're at that point now. Everybody's favorite time throughout the show, and today's draft is brought to you by a holiday movie session. I had been talking about doing this for a while. So my son is 16 years old, so he's getting to the point now where you ease back a little bit on the restrictions on what the child can do and see and things like that. You have to be a little mindful still at times, but I thought it was a
going out to rent Faces of Death.
Not yet, no. But I thought it was a fair time for him to experience The Big Lebowski. Now, The Big Lebowski, for those of you who don't know what it is,
or the Duder or El Duderino, if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
I have a friend, the guy that I run video game clubs with. He's the head honcho. Let's get that straight. He hasn't seen the movie, so there are people who haven't seen this. And my wife explained to me, she's like, well, it is kind of like a cult movie. I'm like, yeah, you're right. It's absolutely a cult, and I wanted to show Derek that he could be in the cult with us. The Big Lebowski is among my favorite movies. It's probably my favorite movie. It cycles what my favorites are, and I thought to myself, let's get him into it. And we sat and watched it, and I asked him afterwards, I said, did you like it? And he said, yeah, but I don't know if he really just says it or just says it to make me feel good. I will tell you, yesterday at dinner before we went bowling, he did say, shut the blank up, Donnie.
Now, did watching the movie inspire you to go bowling?
No, that was actually Jen's idea.
Okay.
But I wasn't gonna. I felt good doing it. Like, yeah, let's go bowling. So today, what I thought we could do, because both of us are Lebowski heads, and I don't know what you call fans of Lebowski fans or whatever. I thought because that movie was so character driven, we could draft Lebowski characters. And here we go. We got the full deck here. And whoa, tell me when to stop. Stop right there. Okay. We can get this bright light on it. So I'm going to hold it back here. So you got red or black?
I'm going to start 2025 going full Wesley Snipes again. Give me the black.
Oh, no.
Wesley.
He always lets you. You know what? Every time it's like the people who say you always call heads on the coin toss.
It reminds me of The Simpsons when Bart always keeps throwing rock. Good old rock. Nothing beats it.
Nothing beats it. Okay. So now you had said that there was a no doubter slam dunk, easy first pick, and I don't disagree. I mean, but I just wonder if our vibes are gonna jive here. We get the screen up here. I'm gonna go with this guy. Walter Sobchak.
That was my number one.
Dude, she steals the movie.
He one of the great performances to not be nominated for an Oscar. Because I think comedy doesn't get its due a lot of the time. But it's the best role of John Goodman's career, and he's had a career full of great roles.
The infinitely quotable. Oh, we're gonna have a guest. Hi, how are you? Come on over. You come on. You have to speak English though. Hello. Look out! Hey, we're live to the world, Maria.
Hi.
Right now we're talking about Walter Sobchak. What do you need? Just a hug. Oh, we got a hug. We got a mid-show hug. Oh, it's good to see you, honey. I'm right here. I love live TV. All right, bye, honey.
This hug interlude brought to you by the Reliance Bowl.
It the Reliant Quest Bowl.
The Reliant Quest Bowl.
Excellent. No, but as far as if language isn't a concern to you, you could get through an entire day quoting Walter Sobchak 50 times.
One of my great memories of our like late teen years. I'll give a shout out to one of our mutual friends, Dan Rigotti. And you have this way, or at least did back then, of like saying things where it would get him fired up, where he'd be like, Max, like what are we even talking about right now? And then you knew like the best way to keep getting him madder would be like, I'm coming on you. I'm coming on you, man. I'm coming on you.
I just want to say, on a personal level, Dan, that Tim and I are just really big fans. Your dissertation on botany, just not exactly a lightweight. So Walter's my number one. So you gotta pivot. Sorry.
So if if Walter was the LeBron of this draft, I'm gonna take the Carmelo. I mean, obviously, I'm taking the dude.
Got to take the dude. And he was on my list, but he was not on the top. I ranked my guys. Dude came in at 10, only because I relate to Walter's irrational anger more than the dude's laid back dudeness.
And it's funny, the older I get, the more I'm turning into the dude. Where I'm just like, I'm walking through like my grocery store with like a cardigan and sweatpants.
Not a bath towel or a bathrobe.
Yeah, not a bathrobe, but like a cardigan.
Not there yet.
And some chucks and some sweatpants, and people are just like, "Who's the guy in the vintage Expos T-shirt?" And I'm just like, "Hey."
We don't talk a lot about libation imbibing on the show too much, but if I remember back to when I saw this in college, me and my buddies decided we have to decide, we have to figure out what a White Russian tastes like, and White Russians actually became like my go-to cocktail if I'm out holiday family party. I will drink another Caucasian, Gary. This is why I started drinking White Russians at parties, because the dude drank them and they tasted good.
When my brother got married, we had like a very low key, calling it a bachelor party makes it sound more salacious than it was, but like a low key bachelor party. He got married in Colorado, and it was this little resort town where they had a bowling alley / bar. And so we had a Lebowski night where we showed up in robes, some of us in wigs and fake beards, and we bowled and we played songs from the Lebowski soundtrack on the touch tunes.
That soundtrack. Oh gosh. We'll talk about that after this list, because man, we could almost draft those songs too.
And then after bowling, we make our way in our robes down the street to some like little Colorado dive bar. You know who wants to buy a guy a drink when he walks into a bar in a robe? Everybody wants to buy you a drink. It was a great Lebowski night bachelor party.
I like that. So, I mean, the dudes, he's just the man for his time and place.
And also, when I think of my 5 favorite actors, Jeff Bridges is in my top 5.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Lebowski's my favorite movie of his, but he's just had a career full of great performances. And it's funny to say, like, John Goodman's so good as Walter, and Bridges is so laid back as Lebowski, that I think, especially when the movie came out, people maybe didn't give Jeff Bridges his due. And it's nice to see now that it's become a cult classic, to see people appreciate Jeff Bridges in that movie.
I think that might have been my introduction to Jeff. Was Jeff Bridges in? Was he in Speed? He wasn't in Speed, was he?
No, it's
I'm
Jeff
thinking
Daniels.
that's Jeff Daniels. There's another Jeff with weird hair. What's another movie I might know him from?
In the I don't know if you would know this movie, but in the 70s, it was kind of like his introduction. He was in a movie called The Last Picture Show. The Last Picture Show. He was in Thunderbolt and Lightfoot with Clint Eastwood. He was in a movie called Starman in the 80s. He was in Tron. He was Oscar nominated for a movie called Fearless in the early 90s.
I got nothing. I'm not as the movies I like. I think we all know are just that they're weird, the like Spaceballsy type stuff. But no, that's obviously a worthwhile number one pick. And I actually thought he might have been your number one overall, which is why I was kind of worried when I picked Walter. Like, is he the clear-cut LeBron of this draft? I don't know. So my number two, I'm going to pick my number two based on an internet theory because I think I love this theory. So in the movie Con Air, a last-second addition to the plane is Garland Green. Now, Garland Green is played by Steve Buscemi, and he comes onto the plane in this, like, he is more restrained than anybody you've ever seen, and he scares some of these massive inmates. They let him out, and at the end of the movie, you see Garland Green walking off, and sitting at a pool with this little girl, and everybody's like, oh, well, he's just going to annihilate this little girl. But at the end of the movie, wherever they were at this rest stop, he gets back on the plane. The little girl waves goodbye to the plane. So, like, he doesn't kill the girl. I believe that Garland Green moves out to Los Angeles. And he does a number on a couple of guys because the shirts that he's wearing during the movie as Donnie never say Donnie. They say AJ, they say Carter, they say whatever. I think Garland Green took on a new personality and lived out the rest of his life peacefully with the dude and Walter. I'm going to take Donnie. Theodore Donald Karabatis.
So Donnie's a great pick. And that's another role in that movie that helps make Goodman's role as Walter so great because he's such a frequent target of just undeserved abuse.
I'm the walrus.
That honestly, like, that was the first thing that let me know I would love that movie. That whole scene where Buscemi just keeps going, I'm the walrus? I'm the walrus.
B.I. Lenin. Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov.
And then the way that Goodman, you're like a child who's wandered into a movie.
My first year student teaching. Well, you only student teach 1 year, thankfully. I'm student teaching, and I pulled that line out on a kid. The kid asked, like, I'm talking about X, and this kid asked me a question about purple, and I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like a small child who's watered in the middle of a movie and wants to know what's going on. And the kid looked at me like, and I thought, oh, well, you're only in middle school, so I get it. But yeah, I was able to use that line in a classroom.
And I will tell you, Donnie was 5th on my list. He was in my top 5.
Oh, I've stolen 2 of them now. This is one of those lists where I thought there might have been a lot of, like, I got 10, and I wouldn't be surprised if we match up on all 10. Well, one of my second, number 9, I don't think you're picking. Who's your 2?
You're definitely not picking my number 10, I don't think. So my second pick, I'm between 2 people, my 3 and my 4. But it's just because it's my favorite scene in the movie, I have to go with John Turturro as the Jesus.
Jesus. Oh.
Just that whole scene about, how he ended up in Chino.
So I watched this movie with a lot of my fraternity brothers in college, and whenever we would go bowling, we had a fraternity bowling team that we would, competition-wise, during practice, the first guy who rolled a strike, their job was to turn around, point, and do the backup dance.
Yeah. How much money would it take for you at a public bowling alley, like with a borrowed, like communal ball, to hold it up and just lick lick the ball.
So, I mean, yesterday when we went, the lane wasn't super oiled. Like, you remember back in the day when, like at Bowl Arena, they had that thing like Exxon Valdez, and you had to towel the ball off. I mean, it had a little bit, but it wasn't a ton. But whenever I picked the ball up, because it's 16 pounds, I was resting it against my shirt, and I thought to myself, man, my shirt's going to get all kinds of greasy. I mean, a couple $100, I'm sure I would. Now he just did it like a little love tap. He didn't like slurp it. Yeah, a couple bucks, I would do that.
And that's another one where John Turturro's only in that movie in 2 scenes. He's in the one where you find out how he ended up in Chino, and then at the end when he has his blow up about what's this day of rest, and yet he's so bizarre that he dominates.
They were supposed to make a movie about him.
They did.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, well, the Coen brothers didn't, but Turturro did.
Okay, and I'm a terrible person because I've never seen it.
Yeah, like the fact that like they could make a spin-off movie about him, a character who really is a cameo, and the way that he dominates so many people's memories of that movie tells you how good John Turturro is as Jesus Quintana.
Absolutely. I will tell you, he didn't make my list for one reason. 8-year-olds, dude. It felt weird. But I will tell you, I play there's a dice baseball league that I play with a couple of guys from, actually we're all over the place now. It started out with like a bunch of guys in New England. We have a guy in Delaware County. I think there's a guy in Arkansas or somewhere in the Midwest. So we're expanding. One of my made up players on my team is named Holden Quintana. and I every time I see him, I think, man, that guy can roll.
And he teaches kids a valuable lesson about why you don't flash your piece on the lanes.
Absolutely.
I take it from you. Pull the trigger till it goes click.
Jesus.
You said it, man.
That's between Lebowski people. There's an answer to certain quotes, and like that's part of being in the cult, I guess.
It's like a concert or something where there's call and response between the performer and the audience.
Such good stuff. So Quintana, you're number 2. Absolutely worthwhile. So on my number 3, another, we would call it a cameo, and I don't know if it's his most notable role because he's a pretty big name in the world of film and cinema.
I know where you're going. I think I know where you're going.
His sheer pompousness for his employer is at the tie and oh yes, feel free to inspect them. I like Brandt.
That was my next pick because Philip Seymour Hoffman is my number 1 favorite actor of all time.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, and for him to do, like, if you think about what that role must have looked like on the page, it probably didn't jump off as being particularly funny. And yet, when people talk about who the greatest actors of this generation are, they usually say, either Philip Seymour Hoffman or Daniel Day-Lewis. And I say, call me when Daniel Day-Lewis plays Brandt in a movie. He's a fine actor. He's fantastic. And he's going to win Oscars for playing Lincoln and There Will Be Blood and My Left Foot. But when he can make me laugh about, the need to go to an ATM machine, then we'll talk Daniel Day-Lewis.
This is our concern, dude.
And you're right. Like even that physical bit of business where Tara Reid says a certain something I can't repeat. And just the way he goes, ha, ha, ha. We all love.
Very free-spirited.
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking of that. My first, just the 2 lines that gets me is like the dude doesn't care about these certificates. He's like, oh, please feel free to inspect them. No, yes. This was when Nancy Reagan was First Lady of the nation, not just California.
What gets me, it's a subtle little moment during that first time we meet Brandt and when the dude meets Brandt, is when the dude's talking, and it's just a subtle little dig that Brant gets where he goes, you didn't go to college.
Go to college. He might have 10 lines in the movie. Don't go in here. He's very upset. He's very angry. He's picking up the wreck from when Bunny comes back. Yeah. So I feel good with Brant.
That's a strong pick. So then I'm gonna have to cherry pick one who I don't know if he's on your list, but I feel like he should be on any Lebowski fan's list because he just between his voice and his mustache.
Oh, he was my number 5.
Sam Elliott as the stranger.
As the stranger, thank you, because I saw him labeled as the cowboy. I'm like, he's not a cowboy, he's the stranger.
And he likes that good sarsaparilla,
This whole darn human comedy keeps perpetuating itself. And look at me, I'm rambling.
As dark as a bear's toothless on a moonless prairie night.
He should almost be number 1 because without the stranger, there is no story because he's telling us the story. Oh, yeah, he's great.
And like that opening narration where we're following the tumbleweed and you think it's going to be one movie and then the tumbleweed blows along some Southern California beach.
That's and then you get to see him. I love how they start out with the narration, but then he shows up at the bowling alley. Why? What's he doing there? He's telling you the story and he's in the story. That's like Inception-y type stuff. I like that.
Yeah, he's almost like a godlike character. The fact that he knows that like Maude got pregnant with the dude's baby.
Like seeing Donnie go.
It's an interesting device that he is a character in his own right who interacts with the characters while being completely omniscient.
And the mustache, the look. He's also the perfect guy for that time and place.
Yeah, who else would have played that if they didn't? If Sam Elliott said no, I want $100,000 more than you're offering. Who was choice number 2? Clint Eastwood's too big a star if you're looking for someone like with like that Western background. Like
Morgan Freeman would have been interesting with the voice, but it wouldn't have been. It would have been different.
Yeah, because they're clearly going for like the old Hollywood cowboy stereotype. I don't even know who would have played that if they didn't get Sam Elliott.
And while I appreciated the role and I totally respect everything about him, and like I said, steal in the 3rd round, never felt the urge to drink sarsaparilla. Not even Sioux City sarsaparilla.
Yeah, me neither.
And I'm still not. I mean,
and you know what? I don't mind if you use a couple cuss words. I kind of like some cuss words.
Yeah. So I think it was Roseanne who I told her that I wanted to show Derek, and Roseanne said something about, "Oh, this will give you a view into your father that you might not have known before, language-wise." And I thought, no, I was dabbling with profanity before The Big Lebowski, but I believe they said they used the F word 267 times or thereabouts.
That's about right.
That's close. I mean, Walter uses it 80% of it, but yeah, that's the response the dude gives him to that. Like, why do you got to use so many cuss words? The response is just like.
And you talk about like weird, like maybe reading into it too much. I've always felt like when he says, "Do you have to use so many cuss words?" where he's like this godlike character in this universe, and the dude responds by cursing back to him. And Sam Elliott kind of looks at him and goes, "Have it your way, dude." And that's when things start to go bad. It's almost like it's like a moral failing that the dude gets punished for, where things start to Jackie Treehorn, he gets drugged, he gets thrown out of Malibu. It almost feels like that section of the movie is like a purgatory that the stranger's making the dude serve.
Never thought of it that way.
He just kind of gives him like an icy look. He goes, "Have it your way, dude."
Geez, that's amazing. Well, I'm gonna shake that off. Let's go to my number 4. My number 4 is still my number 4, and I think I'm allowed to say it, but I probably won't just to be safe. Her art has been commended as being extremely something.
The word even makes a lot of people uncomfortable.
The word, well, without batting an eye, a man will refer to as Rod or as Johnson. Now, I'm going to draft Maud Lebowski.
Yeah, she was also on my list. Just because I love Julianne Moore.
She is so. I'm going to use the word artsy, like, and whatever the art thing is, it's fine. Her dealings with Knox Harrington when the dude shows up the second time, she is just like so opposite of what goes on in the movie. It's like she's living in a different world, but she fits right into the dude's storyline like a puzzle piece.
And I think that's what's so great about the movie is you have all these different sort of like not stereotype, but like archetype characters where you have the classic like 1930s Hollywood cowboy. You have the old hippie stoner. You have the ultra aggressive military weirdo. You have the industrialist seemingly millionaire. And then you have this like pretentious, like avant-garde artist, and you take all these completely disparate people and you throw them into the gumbo of like a film noir detective story. None of it should work. And yet it works fantastically.
Works for us. I mean, there's that one person out there watching is like, that movie's terrible. Why are they spending so much time on it? Because it's awesome. That's why.
And she gets a great introduction where, when the dude walks into her art studio and you just hear like, it sounds like a hawk ready to come down and like swoop down into like grab a squirrel. It's just
in this harness. Flying down like
flinging
paint. Is she gonna hit him? Is she gonna do like the flying elbow off the? No, she's just doing art.
Yeah, and plus the whole scene where she kind of, in a lesser movie, it would have been exposition where she's talking about like, she shows log jamming, and she's kind of trying to explain the situation that the dude has actually been sort of roped into. In a lesser movie, that would have just been like, no, this is what you thought was happening, but this is what's actually happening. But it's peppered with that kind of like, just that trademark Coen brothers, where she's using like certain words, in the parlance of our times. And then like that becomes like the dude like adopts like different words that other people are using throughout the movie. And so he takes on kind of like, coitus. It's so much funnier than it has any business being.
I like it too.
Yes. So
he's so confused in that scene. That's so great. There we go. Maud's my 4. Who's your 4?
I have 3 people left on my list. 2 are what I would say fairly obscure cameo.
I think we're getting to that point now, though. So
I'm going to take the Big Lebowski himself.
Oh, okay.
Not the dude, but the actual Jeffrey Lebowski.
The
millionaire. I like the way Goodman says that because like his like Midwest, like the Chicago accent, the way he uses like that hard R and millionaire. The millionaire. But yeah, another performance that I think gets overlooked because he's not. He doesn't get like the overt laugh lines that like Goodman gets, or like certainly like John Turturro.
So in my friend group, though, like, is that how you go out on a weekday? Like,
Are you
going to class and I'd be wearing like, and somebody would yell at me, "Is that how you go to class on a weekday?" And I would have to respond, "What day is today?"
I would use that line a lot with people. Like if I would go to their house and like I could tell they had just woken up, I'd be like, "Do you have a job, sir?
Are you employed?" I went out and achieved anyway.
For a long time, when I was still doing fantasy football, my fantasy football team name was always the Little Lebowski Urban Achievers.
Proud we are of all of them. So in backtracking, I'm designing a football game to go along with the baseball game. I had tried this 11 years ago, and I went and looked at some of my old prototypes, and some of the team. I worried about team names, so I had Cougars, Bulldogs, something else, and I had Luas, Luas, and I'm like, what was I thinking? And then it hit me: Lebowski, Urban Achievers. And like, oh, that's where my head was. So like, yeah, that stuck with me even then. But
I mean,
David
and
Middlestein was a scumbag. He stole from Tiny Achievers.
but I mean, he's cool racially.
That's you think.
Well,
I
no,
mean,
they're not his actual children.
I don't know if he is cool like racially, because the line about how he lost his legs in Korea.
Yeah, it's not the preferred nomenclature.
Not the preferred nomenclature at all. So it's so neat how he used that word and the dude used it before he met him.
Look, we can agree. We're not talking about some guy who built the railroads here.
The way he turns out at the end, and for those of you who didn't watch it, we will try not to spoil it or whatever. The heel turn it's neat, and I don't know if it was David Middleton or if they had a stunt guy who takes the bump at the end, but he cracks his head on the ground.
Yeah,
that's a legit bump, I think.
And that's another nice little subtle touch where throughout the whole movie, Walter is right about everything. Except that one point.
That's what he acts on.
He's got so much confidence from having been right the entire time. And he's proven to be an actual tough guy in the fight with the nihilists. And then for him to be spectacularly wrong about Jeffrey Lebowski and his abilities to walk.
Excellent. So number 5 for me, this is the definition of a lesser character. What's even the best part about this character is the way he was cast, or the way he was given the role that he was given. He was initially seen in the opening credits where we're listening to Dylan, I think.
Yeah, The Man in Me.
And we have like everybody doing their bowling thing. The big Pacific Islander going when he knocks over the 710. I did that like 6 times last night. Didn't hit any pin when I did this. But so this guy was in that opening montage, and they liked him so much, they tag teamed him with Jesus Quintana, and all he does is this.
He's on my list too, Liam.
I'm going to take Liam, yeah. And he does the dance. That's like the big fat guy bowling dance. I can do that. So I'm taking Liam.
That movie came out in 1998, and it was right around the time that the Eagles hired a little-known coach named Andy Reid. And I remember watching that movie, and I was like, is that the Eagles' new coach? Is John Turturro's bowling partner? Who did we hire?
And you kind of sort of see his name, but the only way you really know his name is that Jesus says, Liam and me, we're going to mess you up. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also going with an obscure character from my last pick. And he's someone who has been previously mentioned. I'm going with Knox. Knox Harrington. Another character who on the page, it's like, well, why is this funny? But to hear the actor David Thewlis and to hear that ridiculous laugh in that scene, the only scene he's in.
With the mustache that has to be painted on. I mean, come on.
I'm wondering if they were poking a little fun at John Waters, like the director, like Pink Flamingos and Hairspray, because he looks a little bit like John Waters.
Does he? I could see a Hollywood director looking like that.
Well, because Jeff Bridges, his whole look and persona is based on a real person, like an independent movie producer of the 90s the Coen brothers knew.
I think I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like this kind of like little hefty, long hair, former hippie, current stoner. And so they just thought like that was the jumping off point where they were like, wouldn't it be funny to take that guy who doesn't seem to care about anything and just drop him into like some like labyrinth detective kidnapping plot, like something out of a 1940s Bogart movie.
And just he has 3 lines, and one of the lines is great. Would you like a drink, Tim?
And
The bar's over there. Like the dude sits down, he's like, the bar's over there. It felt like he was offering to make him. No, you go make your own.
And it's funny, for a movie like that, there really aren't that many more prominent characters.
Well, I have 3 that didn't make the draft.
There's Bunny.
But Bunny was my number 8, and I listed her as Fawn Knutson.
There's John Polito is the other detective.
Delfino,
Brother Seamus.
Brother Seamus, yeah, he didn't make my list.
It's a very small part, but Dom Herrera plays the guy who drives the limo, where Lebowski's in the back, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I got a rash."
Oh man,
it's just a weird non sequitur.
Nope, limo driver didn't make my list.
Who else made your list?
How are you going to keep them on the farm after they've seen this guy?
Oh, Carl Hungus.
Carl Hungus. Just the name, Carl Hungus.
Yeah,
and he shows up later, like he's going to cut off his Johnson, like.
Really any of the nihilists, because it's Peter Stormare, who was in Fargo, the previous movie for the Coens. He's Carl Hungus. And then Amy Mann is the woman who gets her toe cut off.
She's getting $1 million. It's not fair.
And then Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers is one of the other nihilists. He believes in nothing.
So, and the other one, another guy has 0 lines, but he has 0 lines on purpose, and he's stonewalling Walter.
Oh, from the league office?
No, you see him. He's on camera. The dunce. Larry Sellers.
Oh. Yeah. You know who almost made my list was the cab driver who throws the dude out because he's listening to the Eagles. Yeah. And also the sheriff who calls Lebowski a deadbeat.
Yeah. Jackie Treehorn is a he doesn't show up much, but
he treats objects like women.
Good stuff.
And that's another one of the great, and I can't describe it in too much detail, but another great joke because it's from like the old detective movies when a guy would like trace out like to get the number off a pad,
right?
And it just ends up being like a filthy cartoon.
Right, anything of value there. So, who if you're watching this, who are your favorite Lebowski characters? If you have one, if you had the number 1 overall pick, who would you have taken? I think this list was tough to rank because there's a little bit of something for everybody in this movie. And
when I saw, I've seen The Big Lebowski on the big screen a couple times, and there's the campus theater near Bucknell in Lewisburg, and they had a Lebowski night with like a White Russian bar and like
they had Lebowski Fest for a long time.
And so they had like people could come in costume, and then they had a costume contest. And the one guy came, he had just like all these pieces of paper that were like attached to his clothes, like head to toe. And no one knew what he was. And he's like, I'm the Port Huron statement, not the compromised second draft. And I was like, that is fantastic.
Lebowski cosplay, I think, ranks right up there with like the people who do anime and video game stuff because of things like that. Like that's incredible.
You well know from my 40th birthday party, I had a 90s costume party, and I to the best of my ability, dressed as the dude.
Yeah. I think I showed up in actual clothing I wore in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then we went out in public.
Yes.
Well, all right. This is what we're doing. Was I wearing my orange Syracuse like balloon pants?
Yeah,
I think I was either that or Zubaz.
I thought I was gonna say I thought you had Zubaz maybe.
Either or would have been interesting to go to a bar in Bloomsburg wearing. Good draft, good list. So we're as we first reported, it's the first show of the new year, 2025, and a lot of people do these New Year's resolutions things. One of my online friends, he made an interesting resolution online. He said, I'm resolving to not make any resolutions. I'm like, well, you've already broken it, so well done. I don't get into that type of thing. Like, I'm not going to write something down just to forget about it in a couple weeks. But what I thought might be interesting for us, as we are a sports and entertainment show, is if we made resolutions for other people. You know, kind of like we talked our last show about what gets us aggravated and, what our grievances were. How could we fix those grievances? What could we do to help benefit certain people going forward into the new year? And I have 5 that are not necessarily super awesome, but I have a top 5. I'll let you go first, Tim. What's your number 5 or number 1, whatever order you want to go in?
And I that reminded me of one other point that's going to take me back to Lebowski. You talk about your friend who resolved to not make any resolutions, thereby negating his only resolution. I've always felt that the nihilists, being so adamant that they believe in nothing, that they've ascribed to a philosophy, defeats the fact that they believe in nothing. They believe in nihilism, the belief of nothing. That's self-defeating.
What about the tenets of National Socialism? At least it's an ethos.
So my number 1 resolution, this is for Nick Sirianni, coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. Just calm down. Just take some deep breaths. We love your passion. I'm sure he's watching. We love your passion. But just dial it back a little bit. You don't have to yell at the fans. You don't have to get into almost fist fights with your assistant coaches on the sideline. Take up a relaxing hobby. Like bonsai gardening is supposed to be very tranquil. Transcendental meditation might help. Just dial it back. Little calmer, Nick.
Calmer than you are. The rest of the show. Yeah, sure. That I like passion in my football coach. Yelling at fans, not a good look. I will give you that.
Yeah, he or like last season when they beat Kansas City and he was kind of giving it to the fans. It's just a bad look. He's got the best top to bottom roster of any Eagles team of my lifetime. Just he could be so beloved among Eagles fans, and yet some of the antics. That's why anytime the Eagles lose two in a row, you start to hear people say, it's time to fire Nick. So maybe just calm down a little bit.
Let that relationship with your quarterback better. Good. All right, my number 5, and I ranked them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they're in no discernible order. My number 5 is going to be for a gentleman named Paul Levesque. You might know him as Triple H. He is the new head honcho for World Wrestling Entertainment. And if you don't know, this past Monday was the final episode of WWE Raw on the USA Network. It was the longest episodic television program in history. It's now moving to Netflix. And my resolution
that can't be right. The Simpsons started before Raw, and it's still going.
That's what they would say. Maybe they're not calling the Simpsons. I don't know. Maybe they called it episodic sports programming or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or live.
They would always prequel the show. But anyway, they're going to Netflix now, and along with all of the WWE Network material, and a lot of complaints online are that Netflix is not going to build up the entire library like the WWE Network had. Like they've gotten rid of WCW and ECW stuff already. So my resolution for Triple H would be to make sure that network stays intact, because somebody like me who likes to go back and watch Demolition win the tag titles at WrestleMania 4 at least 3 times a year, I just want to make sure the old stuff is there.
And that's a good one, because when I got Peacock, who previously had all the WWE stuff, I probably went back and rewatched like WrestleManias 4, 5, and 6 at least like twice a year each. especially WrestleMania 4, just for the tournament for the belt.
What Randy Savage did was incredible. How does that man win 4 matches in a night?
It's like Villanova winning the '85 title
Against all odds. But no, that's still my favorite WrestleMania, and you know what? That's a lot of people's, like, it's in their bottom 5 because it doesn't have like 5-star matches with people flying all over the place and explosions and fireworks. I don't know. That's what wrestling was back in the '80s, though.
But it's got the storylines like the outside the ring drama that, look, pro wrestling's a soap opera. That was as good as the soap opera got when we were kids. Like,
you know what led into that? I will still watch the main event. Like, it comes up on my video feeds all the time. Andre suplexing Hogan, the referee, the $100 bill sticking out of his pants. How much did they pay for the frame or whatever? That story as a kid leading into a tournament, like they're going to have a tournament in one night. That's awesome. Soap opera wise, that held my small brain's attention. And to the point now where, like, 30 years later, I still go back and I watch it. Now, I won't watch all the matches, like the Don Morocco match. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll watch Randy Savage against the One Man Gang. I'll watch the Demolition match is my favorite because I grew into a Demolition fan. But yeah, it's good stuff. And as I used to like Brutus Beefcake, he got robbed at WrestleMania 4, but he got to cut Jimmy Hart's hair, so that was cool.
That's a good one, and I'll
keep all the old stuff. That's what I'm going with.
I'll be curious to see what Netflix does with just like that wealth of content they have, because they don't have a great track record.
Well, after the Tyson Paul fight,
yeah,
dude, any kind of live sports, hopefully they get Raw off the new year on this upcoming Monday.
Yeah. We'll my next, I'm going to stick with sports. This is for Ryan Day at Ohio State. There's a lot of chatter outside the program saying how you can't win the big one, you can't beat Michigan, you need to change things up. Maybe Ohio State needs to fire Ryan Day. I say keep the status quo. Don't listen to what they're saying. Everything is going perfectly. However you've been preparing for Michigan, keep doing what you're doing. It's aces, bud. Don't change a thing.
I thought about something similar.
Beautiful stuff. And you have a lifetime contract in my book. Never leave Columbus. Don't stretch your legs career-wise.
I have a friend from the world of board gaming who I'm Facebook friends with, and I'll go back to memories. And the year that Michigan lost to Florida State in whatever bowl game this was, he wrote to me, "I'm legitimately embarrassed for you." He's an Ohio State graduate, and we would joke back and forth about the rivalry. He was never a jerk about it. The one year he was really upset that I think it was Jabril Peppers he hit a fan, but the fan hit him or something. I don't know what the whole story was. But I mean, we've had a decent back and forth. Like, I won't rub any games in to him and vice versa. But I asked him once, a legitimate question. I said, how would you rank this? And obviously a loss to Michigan and a loss in a bowl game was like the last thing on his list. But I asked him, would you rather beat Michigan and lose the national championship, or win the national championship and lose to Michigan? And if I remember correctly, I think he said winning the national championship and losing to Michigan would be okay. And that's some mentality of Ohio State fans. I think some Ohio State fans are the exact opposite. Like, I feel the exact opposite. Like, yay, I got a T-shirt or a sweatshirt that I could buy because Michigan won the national title. But the last 4 years, they've won the game. And for college sports, like, it's almost like the International League in minor league baseball. Do we know who won the Governor's Cup? I don't off the top of my head. We could look it up. But winning the game was always bigger than winning a bowl game to me. I think there's a lot of Ohio fans who would be like, you know what? This Tim guy's he's got the right mentality. We stay put with Michigan, but we win the national title. We're okay with that, which is an interesting thought.
And I support that thinking. Please, Ohio State. It's going beautifully, but I do hope that they lose to Texas.
I'm So and we didn't talk about this between Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, and Notre Dame. I'm rooting for Texas for the whole thing just because of regionality. I know there's Michigan fans who live in Texas who are rooting for Penn State based on regionality. Are you going for Texas the whole way?
This is going to sound counterintuitive, but like the same way as a Red Sox fan, that when it didn't sort of conflict with my interests, I have enough friends who are Yankees fans where I was like, I won't hate if the Yankees win. Like the trash talk will be insufferable, but it'll make them happy. So like the same way that like a lot of people in my family, a lot of my friends are Penn State fans. I would hope that they, since it didn't conflict with Penn State's interest last year, I hope they were like, well, it'll make Harry and Jamelli happy if Michigan wins. So I begrudgingly say go blue.
All right.
I wouldn't hate a Penn State national title.
All right, I can respect that a little, I guess.
And also the thought of a Notre Dame Ohio State championship just makes me want to throw up all over myself.
I'll leave it there. The number 4 sports resolution I have is actually for you, and it is to not give Ryan Day any ideas. My number 4 is to somebody that I don't care about at all. We rarely talk about it like through texting. I'm going to go to Jets chairman Woody Johnson, and I hope his resolution should be to hire a GM that's going to actually attempt to build a team. First off, by getting rid of Aaron Rodgers, and if Rodgers doesn't retire, trading Devontae Adams and anybody else not named C.J. Mosley, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, and Quincy Williams, or Olu Fashanu. Build up as much draft capital as you can, because what you have right now is so broken, and you've allowed Aaron Rodgers to come in and build such an awful environment. You should resolve to just burn it down. Get rid of it.
Can we just talk for a second about like the first 5 to 7 years of Aaron Rodgers' career? He was one of the most
when he was playing, when he was sitting behind Favre, or when he was playing.
But
I think he sat for 3 years, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean we'll take both, because I think people liked that he was paying his dues. Favre had kind of a PR problem where he was sending some explicit photos, and maybe not the most well-loved guy going from Green Bay to Minnesota. And people, I feel like there's a lot of goodwill for Aaron Rodgers, where he was doing State Farm commercials, he was doing the discount double check, after touchdowns, and I feel like he was one of the more popular guys in the league.
As a Bears fan, I would disagree from a Bears because he killed us. But again, sure, if you're a Chiefs fan or a Charger fan, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And just it's hard to think of another athlete short of O.J. Simpson who has squandered the goodwill they had built up.
Michael Vick built it back up, though. But yeah,
Michael Vick certainly in that conversation too. But just the way that almost everyone hates Aaron Rodgers now because he's become such a smug, fill in the blank with whatever epithet you want to throw in there. The COVID denier is the I do my own research. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room.
But it's here's the other thing: not showing up to OTAs, not doing anything team related. Like, you're in a new team. Your job as the quarterback should be to indoctrinate yourself to that locker room and say, hey, look, this is me. I'm going to get to know my linemen. I'm going to take them out to dinner. I'm going to buy them, a 75-ounce steak, and I'm going to get to know them personally, because you're putting your career on the line to protect me. Yeah, that's the least he could have done. And he came in not like that.
And running some guys out of the locker room and bringing, forcing the GM to bring some of your old buddies into the locker room. And then also his complete inability to own up, to any shortcoming he has on the field. He's just incredibly unlikable.
And, the coaching staff that got fired, and the people that in the upper level administration. Yeah. So Woody Johnson, clean house, burn it down, get rid of him.
Now, I have to ask for clarification here, because when I looked at the rundown earlier in the week and it said resolutions, sports/entertainment.
That's why WWE is not sports, so that's entertainment.
Okay, because I have some like just straight up like entertainment ones that I put on my list.
You're having fun wrong.
Okay, so my number three, and this is an actor who I like. Uh, he's perfectly fine. Like I'm not a huge fan, but he's he's talented. Timothy Chalamet. Stop. Just take a year off. It feels like he's in every fifth movie. Every time I'm watching a game and there's a commercial for this Bob Dylan biopic, which looks terrible, by the way. Just you're overexposed, bud. Just maybe travel for a year. Just take a vacation. Date a starlet. Do pursue your joy, man.
Okay. So I'm looking at his recent work. Wonka,
he's been in the Dune movies.
Dune, Call Me Your Name, A Complete Unknown, Little Women, Interstellar, Bones and All, Beautiful Boy. Like amazingly,
Interstellar's going back like 10 years though. Like in the last 4 or 5 years, it feels like he has been in everything.
So if we go back to the last 4 or 5 years,
yeah.
So let's go back to 2021. 11 movies.
Okay. And that's since 2021?
Back to and including 2021. There was 3 in 2019 as well.
So that's essentially 3 years because we're only, 4 days into this year.
It feels like a lot of work for an actor.
It's 4 movies a year. That's a lot. I don't know.
I haven't seen any of them, so I can't go back and forth with you about how awesome he was in. I didn't see the Wonka movie. I'm not going to go see the Dylan movie either. Most likely, and I've seen enough commercials of it where, all right, that's not my thing, and that's fine.
Like seeing the commercials for the Dylan movie, it feels like a Saturday Night Live spoof. Like I thought we were done with music biopics. Like after the Dewey Cox movie with John C. Reilly kind of was like, look, there's a very well-worn template that every music biopic follows. And yet even still we get, Rocket Man and Bohemian Rhapsody.
Were you a big Dylan fan?
I like Dylan a lot, but I also find him especially some of his 60s stuff to be a little pretentious.
I listened to the stuff that was on the Lebowski soundtrack, Man and Me. I had the Times There Are Changing. I think that was more of a Berman thing that he got me into that. I was never Bob Dylan's not going to make my top 10 of favorite musical artists. I'm probably not going to make my top 20. But I think your connection to the character in a musical biopic changes things a little bit. So I watched Bohemian Rhapsody. I wasn't a huge Queen fan. The movie was okay. It was fine. Have you ever seen? It's only on Netflix, I think. Have you ever seen The Dirt? The pick on Motley Crue.
I haven't, but I know the movie you're talking about.
I've watched that movie 7 times, and I'm super into it every time. And I wasn't a massive Motley Crue fan back in the 80s or 90s. Like some of their stuff, like the guitar riffs in Dr. Feelgood was that was awesome stuff. Walk to the Ring type stuff. But I liked Motley Crue, so I really liked The Dirt. I think a Dylan fan might look at A Complete Unknown as a different movie, regardless of who's in it. I don't know.
I don't see because I like Queen and I hated Bohemian Rhapsody.
Did you really?
I feel like if it's a story that everyone knows, where I feel like music fans of a certain generation know, okay, kid from small town Minnesota, makes his way to New York, becomes big on the folk scene, then, becomes, sort of the anti-folk guy for a little bit. Why do we need a movie about it if we all know the story? Joan Baez is a character in the Dylan biopic. Make a Joan Baez movie. That's a story we don't know that might actually be interesting. Now I'm on a rant.
Well, that's what this is about. There we go. Let the guys talk through things. Okay, so Tim Chalamet.
This is like my weekly therapy.
All right, so my number 3, and we talked about this a little bit, but not really. So my number 3 is going to be to the president of the NCAA and essentially college football, Charlie Baker. Your resolution should be to find a more organized way to blend the transfer portal with college admissions during the playoff. So we talked about transfers and people leaving school. Penn State's backup quarterback, Bo Perbula, was with this big story out of Pennsylvania that he left and he's going to Missouri and he's ditching the Lions during the playoffs. What if we need, like, you're worried about your backup quarterback? Come on. As we were watching the Michigan-Alabama game, when Davis Warren went down, Alex Orji came in. I'm like, I thought he was in the portal, but he elected to stay and play. And I thought, well, why couldn't Bo Perbula? And I was talking to my dad, and he's like, well, it's probably to do with college admissions. Like, he's in Missouri now. Like, he's got to enroll in classes. He's got to do this. I'm like, oh, yeah. Like, there's that aspect of college now that nobody thinks about. These kids actually have to take credits once in a while. And I think they need to figure out a way to blend the athletics that most people care about with the college admissions to allow maybe a Perbula to stay for the run while maybe taking classes at Missouri.
You're right.
I think
and like
the
best way to sort of like illustrate the absurdity of the current system, it would be like, you know, as the playoffs are starting in the NFL, if we were like, okay, free agency, where are you signing next year?
Yeah, that's the big thing about interviewing a coach while he's still in the playoffs. That is a thing, though.
Right. And also, I mean, it's a small point, but it's, you know, you're coming from being in one system and knowing a playbook and terminology, and now you're going to take whatever information that you had from being in that system for a year, 2 years, and, you know, maybe go in conference or, you know.
When I was looking up the whole Ryan Tannehill to the Eagles thing, I saw a video wherever I heard it, the differences in a college football playbook and an NFL playbook. An NFL playbook is around 500 pages a week. First of all, that's a lot of paper. But they said a college football playbook is about 200 pages. And that's not entirely inaccurate. I mean, my freshman year at IUP, my roommate was on the football team. And when he transferred to Pitt because he wanted to be a kicker, long story short. But he gave me the IUP playbook. He's like, here, I don't need this. He's like, do with it as you will. I'm like, dude, this is kind of cool. So I would look through it and try to understand as much as I could. It was about 200 pages in a binder, and that was IUP.
Right.
So, yeah, going from a D1 school now, that's got to be tough. But I don't expect a walk like something like Bryce Underwood was able to practice with the Wolverines this week. He wasn't going to play, even if he was eligible. He's not going to get any of the playbook in a week. Not a chance.
And I'll tell you, I will piggyback off of this because one of my resolutions that I have here is about they need to come up with a standard system that governs how NIL is regulated. Because as it is now, there is no universal standard. It varies state to state. And when there's no state regulation, it varies school to school. Players at some schools don't even have to report to the school that they're accepting money for whatever, social media, content creation, you know, for appearing in advertisements. It's so new. It's the Wild West where we run the risk of somehow reverting to the old system where on a regional or state by state basis, there's going to be a higher risk for players, people outside of programs like boosters and agents, to abuse the system. And there has to be I can't imagine I can't believe the NCAA has allowed it to go on like this as long as it has, the way they like to micromanage. And I think sometime in the next 5 years, we're going to get a universal standard, not state by state, a federal standard for how NIL money is overseen.
That goes through Congress or through the NCAA?
I think it has to go through the NCAA. But I think if the NCAA drags their feet, I could see it being like a legislative push to be like, you do this or we will, meaning the government will step in.
They've talked about that at the congressional level before. That's why I asked.
And to be fair, and I know we don't get into politics, I don't think the government has any business stepping in at this point. It's not a player safety. It doesn't rise to the level where the government has to intervene. I just think the NCAA has to have the institutional awareness to be like, this is a problem and we need to take care of it.
That's good, man. Look at that.
I put on my serious hat there. I took off my Chalamet hat.
Was that actually one of yours, or do you have a different one?
No, that was mine.
Oh, excellent. So sweet. Like we almost had the same. I didn't think we'd have the same one. That'd be crazy. Because I know you're not going to have my 2 or my number 1. My number 2 was to the Chicago Bears GM, Ryan Poles. If you're going to be the one making these decisions, build an offensive line, please. If you have 9 draft picks, you should draft 7 offensive linemen because you might not hit on 2 or 3 of them. And the way you build in the NFL is in the trenches. Yeah, having the greatest quarterback is great. Having a fantasy football level offense is great. And I was excited about the prospects of Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze at the same time while having Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. Like, that's great, except we all discovered that Caleb Williams can't throw the ball from his back. And as athletic as he is and running around as much as he's been able to, if you don't build an offensive line going into his year 2, he will be ruined as a Bears quarterback, and you will see him in the playoffs in Miami or Los Angeles or somewhere else. So build an offensive line in Chicago, please.
Yeah, I think what the Texans did to David Carr, and granted, the Texans were an expansion team, so you have to take that into account. But it was they ruined his career by drafting him into an expansion team and not for him to be running for his life, for him to be sacked 70, 60, 50 times in a season. And you would hate to see that happen to Caleb Williams. Because I do think the little glimpses I've seen of Caleb Williams this year, I do think he's a special talent. And the fact, like, when I've seen him running for his life and how he's still able to get the ball downfield, reasonably accurate throws when he's just scrambling around, it would be a shame if that's all we remember of his career.
And the only thing the Texans did for David Carr was they paid him $47 million. Not worth it for the career that he had after that. So as someone who doesn't want to see that happen, Caleb Williams has the chance to be the best quarterback in Bears franchise history, which is saying something. You got to put a line in front of him, though.
Yeah, and I would have to imagine that's going to be priority 1 this offseason. So,
we'll see.
Your lips to God's ears, I guess.
Yep.
I'm going back to sports for my 5th one. This is for NBA Commissioner Adam Silver. I know we were just talking about small sample sizes and not being, so quick to judge something after only a couple years. I watch the NBA every night that I can, and I've got to tell you, I think the NBA Cup is just a failure, and I think you have to pull the plug and think of something else. Like if you're trying to make like some sort of like exciting event, like early season, mid season to generate buzz for the NBA, I think that's great, but I don't think this is it. I did not hear too many people talking about Bucks Thunder playing for the NBA Cup.
They raise a banner though.
Yeah, and I was going to say I think it's become a joke among fans when the Lakers won the NBA Cup and they raised the banner and everyone's like, "Oh my God, like are we going to give out rings? Like what? Like it's so contrived. No one takes it seriously. I think it's doing more harm to the product of just the league itself that it's become. It's like New Coke, where it seemed like a good idea, but it's just not.
No, and what they do with the courts, I didn't realize they were playing NBA Cup games. I took a picture. We were at a restaurant. I was like, dude, what's going on with the stadium, with the court? And you're like, oh, it's an NBA Cup thing. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Like they're. It got me interested. It got my eyes for like 30 seconds, but then my eyes glanced to the other TV that was showing, whatever else it was, because I didn't care. I'm with you. Like trying something to build up interest mid-season, but it was like
I love the attempt.
Didn't they say they were going to do something like they were going to have half the playoffs in the middle of the year, like they were going to seed it, and like whoever got to the final, like you had an automatic berth to the playoffs. You remember something like that, or is that just in my head?
I don't, but I think I hope it's not real.
No. Well, this was years ago that I thought they were going to, as they were introducing the NBA Cup. I'm with you. I think it's a dumb idea, and I'm okay with getting rid of it. So
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would be curious if they've seen any kind of ratings bump.
I doubt it, but
I can't imagine they have. Like even like the NBA on TNT guys, like Chuck and the gang, they're pretty candid and they don't mind biting the hand a little bit. Like if they think the NBA is doing something stupid.
So my producer just told me, according to Nielsen, the NBA Cup dropped about 10% compared to last year. 1.3 million from 1.49 million. So,
and that's been sort of the story of the early NBA season is how people are not tuning in.
But I wonder if last year's was more about, let's watch LeBron do LeBron stuff, and it's a big market versus Milwaukee, and I don't know.
But I think because the NBA on TNT guys kind of rag on the NBA Cup a little bit, and I think when you've lost, Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith and Shaq.
Yeah.
I think that's indicative of the fact that you've lost the fan base.
They speak for the people. Yeah. I'm with you. My number one is to the New York Yankees. It's to whatever holdover they have from last year's team. And it's really two resolutions. Number one, you need to forget completely about Game 5 last year. I saw this wonderfully humorous meme on New Year's about, watching the ball drop, and it was Aaron Judge dropping the ball. I'm like, all right, I can smile at that, but like, if you're a player, you got to put that kind of stuff off. Like, it happened, just forget about it. And I think you also need to try to distance yourself as much from Juan Soto as you can, because the guys coming in, I can just see it now in the media. Oh, Cody Bellinger's hitting 210, but Juan Soto's hitting 345, and this and that. That's great. Juan's gone. You have the 2025 team now. Go to spring training and build up that locker room environment and build what you have and forget about last year.
I'm curious because New York is already like notoriously a very tough place to play, regardless of the sport. How much worse do you think it's going to be for the Yankees if Soto's having a strong year in Queens?
It will all depend on the year that the Yankees are having. If the Yankees are in third place, 12 games out, and the Mets are like in first or second, it's a big deal. But if both the Yankees and the Mets are succeeding, I don't think it matters as much. Which is why I think for this year's team, they have to focus on this year and not look at past teammates and their possible successes elsewhere. And that in the media capital of the world, that's hard to do.
I just looked over here. We're at 2.5 hours.
We're just, we're going through, and we started 40 minutes late. That's on you.
That's on me. That's on me.
Yeah. So I'll get things moving for you. Mr. Smarty Pants, I feel very good about the first part because I just do. So we talked a little bit earlier about the Big Lebowski. I have 5 Big Lebowski trivia questions, and if you don't get all 5, I will be shocked, but we will see. So number 1, where was Bunny when the Big Lebowski hired the dude to make the handoff?
Vegas.
She came home singing Viva Las Vegas, but according to Brant, she was visiting friends in Palm Springs. So there goes there goes 5 out of 5, but you can still get 80% here. And this one I feel really good about. After recovering his car from the Los Angeles police impound yard, the dude finds Larry Sellers' homework in the front seat. What was the subject of the paper?
Oh my God, I don't remember.
Oh no. I don't know why I remember this. He got a D about the Louisiana Purchase.
Oh my God. Oh, I have to watch this movie today now.
I watched it I watched it before I made these. I saw these questions, so that might help.
It's probably been a year or two since I've watched it, but I should have known that. The Louisiana Purchase.
Okay, so in the beginning of the movie, when we first meet the dude, he was in the store and he was buying half and half. How does the dude pay, and how much was the half and half?
He pays by check. He writes a check. Is it like 98 cents? It's like it's a pitifully small amount.
69 cents.
Oh, of course.
Nice. Right, there you go. You wrote a check. I'll give you that. And the next two are kind of combined, and I guarantee you know the second one.
Okay.
You've already answered it. What is the name of the techno-pop musical group comprised of Uli Kunkel and two of his nihilist cohorts?
Autobahn.
Autobahn. And what musician played one of those nihilists?
Flea.
Flea. Yeah. So when you said Flea was in the movie, I'm like, oh man, I guarantee he's gonna know that one. I'm
not surprised I didn't get the amount on the check, but I should have gotten the Louisiana Purchase. And honestly, if I'd maybe thought about it a little more, I would have gotten Palm Springs. I was thinking of Viva Las Vegas playing.
Viva Las Vegas on the way back
when she crashed the car and she's running naked through the house.
If I hadn't seen it just recently, I probably would have said Vegas too because of the song. I got you. And then we always do a list here. So with Saquon Barkley hitting the 2,000-yard rushing mark, I thought it might be interesting to see if you could name the other 8 players who have accumulated 2,000 yards and how many yards they accumulated. You see like a number, how close you get. Okay. So take a second. It's okay. Nothing to do here. Take a second. Think about the players and the numbers of yards rushing.
Okay. OJ did it in 73.
OJ Simpson on the list. How many yards did he get?
2,035.
You are off by, oh my goodness. So, what did you say, 2,035?
Yeah.
Minus the 2,003 that he got. Only off by 32.
Okay.
Totally fine. So OJ on the list.
Okay, then Dickerson.
Dickerson, that's the clear one. He's number 1. So
he's like 21, 25.
Off by 20.
Okay.
2105.
Okay. Then no one did it for a while. Terrell Davis was next, I believe.
Terrell Davis. Yep.
I'll say he did 2,043.
2,043 minus 2,008 that he got. You're off by 35.
Okay. Barry Sanders did it next. Barry
Sanders did it the year before Davis, but I'm not asking for years. But
okay,
Barry's on the list.
I remember he just barely got over on a Sunday night, if I remember right. I'm gonna say he was like 2010.
Off by 43. He hit 2,053.
Oh man. Okay.
Dude, I think if you can get within 1,000 yards, you're good.
Okay.
Like a couple hundred yards because they're all over 2,000.
All right, so I've got 4 of them.
You're 4 for 4.
Jamal Lewis did it.
Jamal Lewis, in fact, on the list.
I'll say he did 2,050.
That's admirable. He hit 2,066.
Okay.
So you're off by 16. That's the best one so far.
Okay. So that's 5. Chris Johnson did it.
Chris Johnson would have been a name I totally forgot about because it's Chris Johnson. But he is on the list.
I'll say Chris Johnson did like 2027.
2027 minus the 2006 that he actually got. You're off by 21.
Okay.
Not bad.
Adrian Peterson did it.
He all day.
I'll say he did 2062.
62 is 35 off of his 2097.
I remember there was talk about him with Dickerson, so I knew it was higher in the 2000. Okay, and then I need one more guy.
Two.
I need
The
two more.
whole list.
Oh well, Saquon. Are we saying Saquon?
Yeah, Saquon's on the list. So yeah, Saquon's on the list.
And he's like 2006 or something like that.
2006. Oh, that's terrible. 2005. So you're off by a yard.
Okay.
But that's your best. I figured that would be your best one. Actually, I thought Dickerson might be your best one. I thought you might know the number because of the chase, but 2005. So you're 203 total yards off, and you're missing one guy.
Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry's the guy. So you got all 9 guys on the list. How many yards did Derrick Henry rush for to get his 2,000?
2031.
That is an incredible guess. Just 4 yards short of the 2027. So you not only got all 9, but based on yardage, you're off by 207 yards. I think that's phenomenal. I challenge anybody out there before they watch this list. I don't think they could have done any better. I really don't.
I'm pretty I needed to redeem myself after dropping the ball on Lebowski, which I'm going to be angry about all weekend.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, but I redeemed myself with the running backs. I'll take it.
Yeah, that was a good one. And I'll be interested to see if you can figure out the common denominator here for rank roulette.
Okay.
Because it's an interesting one. So I've got A, B, C, D, E listed out. Where are you going first?
Let's start with B.
B is Jay and Silent Bob.
Okay. I'm going to guess this is movie duos based on like the Dude and Walter from Big so I'm going to say Jay and Silent Bob. I'll give them a 3.
Jay and Silent Bob are going 3. Okay, cool. So you got ACDE.
I'll go E.
E is He-Man. Just He-Man.
Okay. If this were 1985, it would be number 1, but I'm a grown adult now. I'll put He-Man 4.
Going 4. Okay. Boom. So you have A, C, D.
I'll go D.
D is Dick Butkus.
I'll go 2.
Butkus going number 2. Okay. So you have A and C.
I'll go C.
C is Indiana Jones.
1.
That's great. That's fitting, I suppose. You know what the last one is?
Indiana Jones, Dick Butkus, James.
I won't tell you. I won't tell you your number 5. I'll let you guess what you think the connection is because I think it's going to be hard for you.
Dick Butkus, Jay and Silent Bob, He-Man, Indiana Jones. My first thought was like Indiana and Butkus, like dog names or something like that. I don't know.
No, so we're a couple weeks outside of Christmas, and my father and my sister got me some Funko Pops. So these are the Funko Pops I got. Number 1 was Indiana Jones. So you're number 2, Dick Butkus. I got a Dick Butkus. There's
Very cool.
You're number 3. I got both. I mean, they didn't come together, but I got a J and a Silent Bob. Put those over there. You're number 4 because it's not 1985. Is it a special edition He-Man?
I think I know what number 5 is going to be.
I have this guy, but like this guy has the sword. Like who remembers He-Man with an axe? Come on.
Right.
So I got the special. I got the special one. And you know number 5?
It's going to be you.
I got a Max. Look at this guy. But I took him out of the box because he was moving. But like I got my name on a box. So yeah, Max comes in number 5.
You're ranked properly.
I'm behind Indiana Jones and Dick Butkus.
The ego on this guy thinking he's better than He-Man. Come on.
I wonder what kind of like Roseanne put I have a video controller, a game controller, and a helmet because that helmet's not even fitting this head.
I can tell you now that Roseanne reached out to me when she was doing that, so
oh, yeah?
I should have gotten the theme. That's how I knew you were number 5.
Ah, there you go. I couldn't get like a power sword, so
that would have been great.
So there's your lists: Indiana Jones, Dick Butkus, Jay and Silent Bob, He-Man, and myself.
I stand by it.
I think it's neat that I have one of these. I've seen advertisements for them. I'm like, I don't know.
And just saying, 3 of the 5 are dog names because Indiana was the dog's name.
Yeah, Butkus.
Butkus, and then Max is the dog in How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
How about that? So, I'm sure someone out there has named their dog Jay, and I guarantee you there's a dog named Silent Bob.
Absolutely.
There has to be.
And so. I'm convinced there's a dog named He-Man.
Oh, yeah. Oh, or there was at least in the 80s. I named my fish He-Man growing up.
That counts. So pet names.
That was a thing. Pet names. There you go. Max Gimelli the pet. Dude, 2:45 for I thought it was a slow sports day, honestly. I didn't think we had a ton of sports stories. We hit 4 playoff games for college football.
Right. And plus we hadn't talked over the holidays.
Yeah. So a lot of good stuff has happened, and even through some NBA sprinkles. And I could talk Lebowski for 3 hours on its own, and that's only a 2.5 hour movie. So
yeah, I feel like we should have an offshoot podcast where we just talk Lebowski.
Wednesday nights here on Restream. We have to come up with a new name though. Can't call it Soup and Meatballs. We'd have to call it like White Russians and Lingenhorn pancakes, or Lindenberger whatever the pancakes the nihilists got.
Now, I feel like I definitely have to watch that movie. I can't believe the Louisiana Purchase is the one that's going to eat at me.
When I saw the question, I saw paper. My first thought was, oh, did I ask him something about the Port Huron statement? That's why I thought you'd automatically get it because you talked about it. I saw Larry Sellers. I'm like, Larry Sellers didn't write the Port Huron statement. He wrote. Oh, okay.
This is what happens when you find a stranger in the Alps.
Oh my goodness! Can we talk about movies that shouldn't be on network TV? That and Goodfellas.
I remember because I'm a big Pulp Fiction fan. I remember that being on. It was like over Thanksgiving of like 1997 or something, and I was like, oh boy, because I like, it had just like left theaters, like a year or two earlier, and they showed it on like Fox and Hazelton, like the local like Wolf 56. And I think it was like 35 minutes. Like the scene in Pulp Fiction where Marvin accidentally gets shot in the face and you see the splash of blood against the back. Like it just faded to black before the gunshot. And then you just hear Travolta's voice go, I shot Marvin in the face. Like his voice like dipped out and it was clearly like they slowed the audio and kind of like his voice. It was like, I shot Marvin in the face.
The amount of money they paid whatever audio engineer and editor to edit that movie for television, they did not make in ad revenue to actually air that on network television.
Like at a certain point, what's the point of even watching?
Exactly. Yeah. That's and Goodfellas. It was either Goodfellas or Casino, one of those, because language-wise, they rival each other based on subject matter. Obviously, on USA or TBS or TNT. Just don't. I mean,
yeah, I think Casino has the record for most uses of the F word. It might be over 400. Now that is like a 3-hour movie, but still a bit excessive.
Oh no, The Wolf of Wall Street.
So maybe Casino had it at the time.
Maybe.
Like
I mean, it's 506.
Oh my God.
Deadpool and Wolverine was big. There's actually a Wikipedia page for list of films that most frequently use the word. And oh wow, so Wolf of Wall Street is only ranked 3rd There was a movie in 2014 called Swear Net the Movie. Shocking. And then there was a movie in 2005 actually titled those 4 letters.
Right.
Casino is at the time, so 1995, it would have been number 1. It was overtaken in 1997 by a movie called Nil by Mouth.
Yeah.
And then in 1999 by Summer of Sam.
That makes sense.
And then Wolf of Wall Street in 2013, Swearing at the Movie in 2014. Like there, if you go to Wikipedia, type in list of films that frequently used, it's a top 203 list. It's almost like a Mr. Smarty Pants thing.
And I'm sure like half of it is Tarantino, Scorsese, and Spike Lee.
Probably. I mean, so I haven't heard of most of these movies. Like, I've heard of Straight Outta Compton, but Honora, Christmas, Bloody Christmas, The Acid House, Starred Up, End of Watch, State Property, Twin Town, Running Scared. As I'm giving you a list of movies that say the F word the most, kids out there. Goodfellas coming in at 27th. But that was back in, so 1990, that would have been number 1.
That's like Fran Tarkenton retiring with the most passing yards and now being like 15th. Goodfellas is the Fran Tarkenton of cinematic swearing.
That's a great comparison. I love it. And if I could go back, like the movie that it broke the record of, Spike Lee's "Do the Right Thing,"
which was the year before, 89,
240, Goodfellas 300. So it obliterated it. Wow. Who's sitting there counting this?
IMDb, probably.
Yeah, so there's somebody on Wikipedia. So Reservoir Dogs, 269, just over top of Pulp Fiction's 265. Yeah. If we talk about this for another 8 minutes, we're going to hit 3 hours. So,
well, we should go. There's football on.
Let's go watch some football. Tim, it's been a good week. I'm glad we got to talk and go through Lebowski stuff, and I could show off my – I have to find a place for these now because my house is such a wreck, and we got to go back to work, so it's probably going to be a wreck forever. But good talking to you, and we'll see you after later with